The Jefferson County Planning Commission will come to order. This is May 23rd, 2012. Welcome, everyone. Glad to see you here. We have a few things to do first before the cases start. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And would everyone please turn off their cell phones or any other electronic devices because they interfere with our recording system. And also, after you do that, we have a time right now for anyone to come up and if they have any comments about the Planning Commission, the planning process, other than the cases we have before us tonight, now is the time to come up and let us hear your comments. Anyone interested? Seeing none, we'll go to the next item. Next item is the approval of the minutes of May 2nd, 2012. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Mr. Ferguson?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes be approved from May 2nd, 2012.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Olson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Passes 7-0. So all the commissioners you see here tonight will be voting. And usually we have 9 commissioners, but 2 are out now, so our regular number is 7, so everyone will be voting tonight. Okay. Into the cases, we have 2 items on the consent agenda. One of the items, the regulation amendments, was pulled off the regular agenda, and we put it on the consent agenda, and we'll see if that stays on the consent agenda. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? No, wait. We have to read them into the record first. Excuse me. Bonnie, would you read the consent agenda into the record?
The first one is a rezoning case number 12-100860RZ. The case name is C470 Alameda Southwest ODP. The owner is 3 Dinos LLC. The applicant is Embry Partners. The location are parcel IDs 40-234-01001, 40-234-01006, 40-234-01012, and 40-234-00020, which are located near the southwest corner of State Highway C470 and West Alameda Parkway. The approximate area is 26.7 acres. The purpose is to rezone from corridor district medium-scale retail to planned development to allow for a mix of uses, including retail, office, multifamily, and open space, and the case manager is Heather Gutherless.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wants to comment or testify in this case? Vince, do you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I need to indicate that on the consent agenda item for the 3 Dinos property, I will not be voting. I will recuse myself from that case.
Okay. So that stays on the consent agenda. Bonnie, please read the next.
And these are regulation amendments. Case number 12-105804AM. The owner applicant is Jefferson County. The purpose is to amend Section 46 and the definition section of the zoning resolution to allow craft breweries, wineries, and distilleries, and to allow indoor recreation and sports training facilities. The case manager is Michael J. Chadwick.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment or testify on this case? Seeing none, that will stay on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Olson.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to second, and also I'd like to ask staff, if I may at this time,
Go ahead.
As part of this hearing, to work on language for a red line note to go in the document For the first case, the three dinos, for the Board of County Commissioners consideration for a requirement for residents that are to live in this area to sign a disclosure regarding noise, and particularly noise regarding or emanating from the speedway nearby, the Vandermeer Speedway. I assume that would probably need to relate to both owners of dwelling units as well as residents in the area. I know staff will need an opportunity to look at that language, and so we won't work on that tonight, John, but if your staff could think through that a little bit, how that language would look in a red line note for submittal to the board when this case moves on, we'd greatly appreciate it.
All right. Any other comments to that? Okay, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The consent agenda passes 7-0.
Mr. Chair, we should
6-0, excuse me. 6-0. Okay. The next case is the urban growth boundary adjustment, and that case will come after the Keller Farms case, and we'll deal with that after the Keller Farms case. So, Bonnie, would you read the Keller Farm case into the record, please? The Keller Farm first. Yeah.
Okay, this is rezoning case number 12-101515RZ. The case name is Keller Farm Official Development Plan. The owner applicant is Keller Farm Property LLC, Asphalt Paving Company, George M. and Darlene J. Hogan, John A. and Julia A. Tuthill, James L. Keller. The location is 5899, 6569, 6609, 6709, and 6809 State Highway 93, 6550 Glencoe Valley Road, and 20413 West 56th Avenue, and 7 parcel IDs as noted on record. The approximate area is 1,237 acres. The purpose is to rezone from agricultural to and planned development to allow a mixed-use community with residential, commercial, industrial, and private open land uses. The case manager is Jeannie Schaefer.
Okay. Thank you, Bonnie. Would everyone wanting to testify or will be testifying in this case please rise and be sworn in? Even if you're thinking about testifying.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before this commission is the whole truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the process is that staff will give their report up to 20 minutes. The applicant will give their report up to 20 minutes. Then we'll go to public testimony. Approved HOAs will receive up to 10 minutes in their testimony, and then individual citizens have up to 3 minutes for their testimony. The lights on the lectern there, when the yellow light comes on, you have 1 minute left, and when the red light comes on, that's up. Your time limit is up, and we would appreciate it if you would stick to those time limits because we have a lot of people testifying tonight. So, Jeannie Schaefer is the case manager. Go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is case number 12-101515RZ, the Keller Farm Official Development Plan rezoning. I just wanted to start by giving an overview of kind of the processes that are involved or that could be involved in the future. So currently we're here tonight to hear the rezoning of this property. The rezoning is an entitlement phase. If approved, it dictates the uses that may occur on the property, so not the uses that will definitely occur, just the uses that may occur. The final decision regarding the rezoning case is made by the Board of County Commissioners. If the rezoning is approved, in order to continue on and develop and build on the property, the applicant then has to go through a platting process. The platting process is required prior to the subdivision of the property. So for residential lots and commercial lots, industrial use lots, the platting process is required. During that platting process, traffic is reviewed again, drainage is reviewed, road construction, roadway improvements, and that also is a process that is approved by the Board of County Commissioners. So that is a public hearing. The platting process is a public hearing. If the platting is also approved, the next process after that would be a site development plan process, and that's for commercial, industrial, retail type uses. The site development plan process is administrative. It considers the site design, so the exact building, where the building is going to go, what the architecture is going to be, what the landscaping is, pretty much what the exact use of that building is. And I go through all those tonight just so you can kind of understand what the next steps are in case there are questions as to why certain things are not done at the time of rezoning, why they're done at platting, or why they're done in a later process. So the subject property tonight is located west of State Highway 93 and with 56th Avenue as the bound on the south and about 64th, 68th Avenue, the bound on the north. Just wanted to give a brief little background about the property. I know the applicant will go into more detail about the background and the uses, but I just wanted to briefly touch on a couple of things. The current zoning is agricultural 2 and planned development. The area in yellow is the area that's zoned for planned development. The PD allows for mining and asphalt batch plant type uses, and then A2 allows for agricultural and single-family residential uses with a minimum lot size of 10 acres. Current land uses on the property are agricultural, single-family residential. Those are the yellow dots on the property, or some of the single-family homes, as well as the existing mining and asphalt and the batch plant on site. I wanted to go through the proposed uses very briefly, so I've kind of grouped them together just generally into retail, office, residential, and I know the applicant will go into more detail about those, what's actually in each use area. But just to give you an idea, use areas 1 and 3 are zoned for retail office type uses, so business, professional, medical offices, convenience retail such as spas, beauty salons, bakeries, restaurants are allowed, gas stations, banks, hospitals and nursing homes, movie theaters, live work, auditoriums, various things like that are allowed in those 2 areas. In uses areas 2 and 4, this is kind of the office area. This allows for research and development, business, professional, medical, dental offices, hospitals, laboratories. And then use area 4 is the more industrial kind of area. So use area 4 allows for light manufacturing, shops for custom work, fabrication, just kind of uses that are more intense, but both use areas allow for office type uses. Use areas 5 and 6 are kind of a little bit higher density residential. They allow for single-family dwellings, 2-family dwellings or duplexes, multifamily dwellings, co-housing, as well as hospitals, nursing homes, and assisted living. The lot sizes in these areas range from 4,000 square feet minimum in use area 5 to 12,500 square feet for the single-family detached residential in use area 6. Use areas 7, 8, 9, and 10. The uses for those are primarily single-family dwelling uses. Use areas 8, 9, and 10 allow for agricultural uses if the minimum lot size is 35 acres. Otherwise, the minimum lot size for 7, 8, and 9 is 2 acres, and for use area 10, it's 20 acres. So they're similar in their uses. The way they differ is in their lot sizes. Use areas 11 and 12 are preserved private open lands. They may contain riding stables, horse trails, private trails, community gardens, or other similar type uses. In many of the use areas, there's a phase 1 and a phase 2 to development, so all the uses I just went through would be considered kind of a phase 2. Phase 1 covers the existing mining operation, which you can see in the dashed line here. That is allowed to continue as is. So it pretty much follows exactly the same ODP that it does now. And then the other uses that are considered in that phase 1 are the existing single-family dwelling uses, as well as some of the existing agricultural uses. So those uses are allowed to continue until the time of redevelopment, which is why you see a phase 1 and a phase 2 in the written restrictions. So with that background, I wanted to go into the comprehensive plan analysis, and these are the criteria that we review the case against. They're directly from the comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning is in general conformance with all of the recommendations in each of these categories, but I did want to touch on the 4 highlighted in red, just because I think they need some more detail. If you have questions about others that I haven't covered, you can ask me at the end of the presentation. So I wanted to cover general land use first. The plan recommends or identifies this area as an activity center in the north. This is the North Plains plan. The plan recommends office, research and development, and light industrial uses, and it says that retail and residential uses should support the employment generating uses and the local community. So the proposal by the applicant does meet the intent of this community plan. However, staff feels that the intensity within the activity center of regarding what the uses and density and intensity of the uses that the applicant is proposing could be increased. So right now the breakdown of uses is 30% of the area within the ODP boundary is set aside for open land, 29% is set aside for commercial and industrial uses, and 41% is set aside as residential uses. So staff felt the residential uses were high, given this has been designated as an activity center, and the focus should be on those employment-generating uses. So really the proposed amount of commercial should be increased and could be increased just to allow more opportunity for those uses on this property. So staff is in support of the applicant's proposed written restrictions, but our suggestion is, through our red marks, to increase the density and intensity of both the commercial and residential uses and the industrial uses in order to allow, greater flexibility in the future. So it's not requiring that, the whole site should be commercial, it's just allowing for that opportunity. So I think even though it's a little out of place, it kind of is appropriate to talk about what staff's recommended red mark changes would be, since it's directly related to the activity center use. So our proposed additions or changes would be in use areas 3, 8, and 9 would also allow for the employment generating uses that are same in use area 4. So the southern portion of the property would all allow for the same industrial technology uses as well as the residential uses. So there would be the option to develop it as either residential or commercial industrial. Also, the residential lot sizes in areas 8, 9, and 10 should be a minimum average of 1 acre with a minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet, which would allow a variety of different lot sizes. It would allow higher densities that would be more appropriate in an activity center, but it would also not prevent lower densities. So none of staff's suggestions prevent the applicant from doing what they would like to do, what they're proposing with their written restrictions. It's just in case in the future, people feel that there are more industrial or commercial uses are appropriate in those areas, that it allows that opportunity. In use area 6 and 7, we suggested that those be combined with use area 5 and match the use area 5 standards. So that's an increase in residential density. All the lot sizes would be, I believe, a minimum of 4,000 square feet. So it would increase the opportunity for more density in those areas. It does not prevent the applicant from, developing larger lots in those areas either. And I'll go over these again kind of at the end if you have questions about the red marks. The next topic I wanted to cover was open space land, open land, parks, and trails. 30% of the land within the ODP has been set aside as private open land. There are notes in the written restrictions that call for public trails that run north and south along Highway 93 and east and west along the Van Bibber Creek corridor. There's also a note in the written restrictions that address the preservation of the Van Bibber Creek riparian area. So the exact location of trails and buffer areas will be determined during a future platting process, but the ODP does note that those are things that need to be provided and protected as the case moves forward.
Could you go back just one second?
Sure. The next topic is visual resources. And a visual analysis was completed for the activity center. So it's the area outlined in red on the screen with the North Plains plan revision. The areas in white and green are the least visible areas, and the areas in red and yellow are the most visible areas. So red, yellow, I don't know if it's hard to see in the back or not. And then these are the more visible areas. The highly visible areas in red also have significant geologic features on the site, which will be preserved as they're located in the use areas 11 and 12. That's the private open land use areas. Along Highway 93, there are visible and proposed for development utilize setbacks and height limits to mitigate any visual impacts, as well as buffering and landscaping. So there are some areas along Highway 93 that are visible or that do provide views back to the mountains that staff feels through limiting the sound walls to eliminate that tunnel effect along the road, and then through setbacks and height, some of those views and those visual impacts can be mitigated. As for transportation, a traffic study was completed that assumed a long-term development horizon to the year 2035. The traffic data for 2035 was acquired from the Denver Regional Council of Governments. Because improvements along 93 are kind of unknown at this point, and there's no short-term plan for development on this property, the traffic study was done a little differently, which is why the 2035 number comes into play. We also reviewed 2 different improvement scenarios along Highway 93. One scenario assumed the widening of Highway 93 and employing traffic lights at the intersections of 58th and 64th. The second scenario assumed a widening of Highway 93 and grade-separated intersections. The traffic study showed that at build-out in 2035, road widening and traffic signals could adequately accommodate the proposed development. In either scenario, the West 56th Ave intersection with Highway 93 would either be closed and the intersection move up to 58th, or would be converted into a right-in, right-out. Additional traffic studies will be required with any future platting or site development plan process to determine the exact roadway improvements that will be needed based on the specific development at that time. So this plan really is kind of just a more basic plan, kind of trying to project into the future what might happen. But again, with the platting and site development plan process, that the exact improvements will be determined when the exact uses and specific development plan is brought in. So just to kind of summarize again, the proposed application is in conformance with the plan recommendations, except for the fact that staff would like to increase the density and intensity of some of the uses on site. All right, so once again, I wanted to go over the red marks because it's a little confusing. So at this point, in your packets, you have a red mark a non-red marked version, which is the applicant's proposal. It's dated 5/2 of 2012. It does not have any red marks on it. I believe the applicant does have trail notes that they would like to add, and I believe they will be speaking about those in their presentation. So that's one option for approval, is what the applicant is proposing. The other option is the version of the written restrictions in your packet that are date and stamped red mark print. They're from staff. They include the additions to expand the office industrial uses into use areas 8 and 9 and 3. They also increase the residential densities, and there's also trail and natural corridor notes as well as traffic notes that staff specifically, that's the language staff specifically wants to see, that the applicant does not necessarily agree with. So we have differing opinion as to what those notes need to say. So you kind of have a couple options in front of you tonight. And I bring this up now because I do want to talk about the urban growth boundary next. The urban growth boundary, the intent of the boundary is to guide urban development into specific locations. So there's an urban growth boundary throughout the entire county. Urban growth is considered residential dwelling units with a lot size of 1 acre or less, and then any type of industrial, commercial, retail, office uses are considered urban, and if you're rezoning, they need to be within the urban growth boundary. The boundary is established and agreed upon by DRCOG, and there is flexibility built into the urban growth boundary. So currently, Jefferson County has 890.64 acres kind of banked that can be assigned to to other development that's currently outside of the urban growth boundary. So you have a staff report that specifically addresses the urban growth boundary. There are DRCOG review criteria in there. This proposal is meeting all of those review criteria. If you do recommend approval of the rezoning tonight, it does require approval of the inclusion of the property into the urban growth boundary. It doesn't require that 1,237 acres or the entire property be included in the growth boundary. It only requires the urban areas. So if you decide to approve the applicant's request, only 382 acres would need to be included in the urban growth boundary. But if you go with staff suggested changes, then you would need to approve 626 acres into that urban growth boundary. And the caveat with the 626 acres is that some of those use areas allow for both low-density residential as well as, the urban use is commercial. If they come in and plat the property and they're low-density residential uses that don't qualify as urban uses, that urban growth boundary that you've allocated can go back into the bank at the time of the plat. So it's not lost forever if they don't develop in an urban fashion. If you decide to not approve the case, then you do not need to approve an urban growth boundary. So staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission find that based on the information provided in this presentation in the staff report, that the proposal is in general conformance with the comprehensive master plan because it meets all applicable sections of the plan policies. The proposed land use is compatible with existing and allowable land uses in the surrounding area because impacts to the surrounding area have been mitigated to the extent feasible. Uses transition from high intensity to low intensity, and the significant natural features on site have been preserved. The proposed land uses will not result in significant impacts to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and landowners in the surrounding area. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve case number 12-1018. There's too many numbers in there. Case number is 12-108921CH. That is the urban growth boundary. And staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners for case number 12-101515RZ with the following conditions: revisions to the red mark print dated May 23rd, 2012. And those are the staff suggested red mark prints. And that concludes staff comments.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Jeannie? Okay, applicant, you're on.
Good evening. Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. My name is M.L. Richardson, and I am with Keller Farm Property. I'm going to just do a couple of quick introductions, and then we'll continue to move forward with our case. So first we will have, that's better, isn't it? I just heard that. Okay. First we will have Jeff Keller. Jeff Keller is the president of Asphalt Paving Company and also the manager of Keller Farm Property, third-generation Colorado resident. And followed by Jeff, we will have Heather Scott, who is our premier case manager and land use planner on this. So thank you very much, and then we'll entertain your questions. And again, we really are excited to tell you about this wonderful plan and appreciate all of you being here this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, ML. Mr. Chairman, members of the Jefferson County Planning Commission, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present our case to you tonight. As ML said, my name is Jeff Keller. I'm the manager of Keller Farm Property, LLC, and the president of Asphalt Paving Company, APC Construction Company, that's done business here in Jefferson County for 57 years.
Jeff, could you give us your address, please?
Business address is 14802 West 44th Avenue, Golden, Colorado. You want my residence address too? All right. Okay, as ML said, I'm a third-generation Jefferson County, Colorado native. And we're proud to operate a third-generation Colorado company right here in Jefferson County. Family-owned and operated since we started. My grandfather, John H. Keller, started the company in 1955. He was fortunate enough to obtain a lease with the Coors Brewing Company down along Clear Creek for gravel and aggregate. And they had moved here from Nebraska and decided that this would be a great place to live, a pretty place to live, and a lot of gravel roads or dirt roads at the time, and decided that people didn't want to drive in the mud or the dust, so we started a paving company. Ultimately, we ran out of resource down along Clear Creek, which is now being used for water storage for the brewing company. The second generation of Kellers was my father, Bill Keller. And he saw that our resources were going to be depleted at some point in time and went to work to find the next generation of aggregate resources for our company. And was fortunate enough to become familiar with the Patridge family and the Ramstetter family, both with major land holdings north of Golden. And we were able to put together a lease to where we leased it from the Patridges and the Ramstetters. Then we obtained the permits necessary to start mining gravel. We were successful in that. And in 1975, we started mining gravel, the aggregate up there. In 1993, we depleted the resources down along Clear Creek. So that's the point in time that we moved our asphalt operations up to the quarry. Also, in about 1992-93, we were fortunate enough to acquire the property from both the Patridge family and the Ramstetter family, which is the property that we're talking about right now. So, all in all, we, the Kellers, have been affiliated with this piece of property for almost 4 decades, 37 years, 20 under our ownership and 17 under lease. And the Patridges and the Ramstetters had owned it for decades before that. We're very proud of our business, very proud of our contributions to the community, and proud of our employees, both past, present, and future. We currently employ about 150 people. That's down from about 300 people due to this economically challenging environment that we're all trying to survive. We're also proud of the stewardship, our stewardship of this land. In addition to the core business and creating jobs, we also raise cattle, we ride horses, we raise some horses, and the property has been a great and continues to be a great asset for our company in those ways. And we care enough about this property that when we are done mining it, we just don't want to part and parcel it off. We want to create a vision for it, a vision that creates value, that creates vision for the property, for the region, for Jefferson County. And that's why we're here tonight, the first steps of that process. We've assembled a great team, and we've been working on this formally for over 3 years right now. The vision actually started probably 20 years ago, but we have experts. We've went out and found the best experts we can find to help guide us through this process and come up with the best vision that we can for our property. To develop a comprehensive plan for the site rather than selling it off part and parcel. Our focus today is on mining, making asphalt, paving roads, raising cattle, riding horses. And that will continue until we responsibly, fully utilize the resources that we have up there. But at some point, when the aggregates are depleted, there'll be a transition for this land, and that's what we're trying to create, is that transition. We want to transition and incorporate our family stewardship of the property and the things we love about Jefferson County. The best path to do that is what we think is to create a smart and cohesive way instead of disconnected pieces of developments. More importantly, our vision retains the property's role as an employment center, which it has been since 1975, and perhaps with uses such as research and development, office park, a little bit of retail, and some residential. We feel that we've come up with a very sound and responsible plan. We believe in it. We appreciate working with staff throughout the process, and we'll continue, and we're committed to continue to do so. With that said, thank you for your time, your attention, and I look forward to hopefully your approval of our case tonight. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Heather.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. My name is Heather Scott. I'm a land planner, consultant with DHM Design. Their address is 1390 Lawrence Street, Denver, Colorado, 80201. DHM Design was hired to evaluate the potential uses that will best suit the development on the Keller Farm property. Jeff has gone over the history and the family stewardship of this site, and we strived really hard to create an economic development opportunities leading to job creation and livability as the focus of this development. It's important to do this application now to create a master plan that will help guide the infrastructure, utilities, and land uses in a coordinated and cohesive manner. Rezoning this property piecemeal will create unpredictability in future land use decision making and make it impossible to create and implement that family stewardship. Another benefit of processing this application now is the inclusion of the 2 outparcels with this application, which the North Plains Community Plan recommends. We created a site analysis map which evaluated the existing quarry, the changing terrain, the family home sites, the floodplain, and access to and from the site. We also evaluated the surrounding parcels, including Denver water storage to the north, Jefferson County open space to the south, residential uses east and west. We went further to locate the schools and services. We knew we had 2 points of entrance from Highway 93, one at 64th Avenue and one at 58th Avenue. We quickly realized that the family farm would need to be relocated. Traffic next to the horses was something we wanted to try to avoid. We decided to relocate the family home to the southwest corner of the property. From this analysis, we developed a vision that the family agreed upon could benefit the community and maintain the beauty on this site. That vision is what we bring before you tonight. Each use area has 2 phases, as Jeannie said earlier, the current use of either the quarry or farming and residential. Rather than allowing Phase 1 uses indefinitely, we created 2 separate lists defined by pre-development and post-development. There are 2 mixed-use commercial areas. Use areas 1 is approximately 54 acres. Use area 3 is approximately 35 acres. Jeannie went through the list of what is allowed, including medical, dental, health and fitness training facilities, restaurants, schools. We have limited any development to 50,000 square feet in an effort to block big box development from the site. We also envision a need for a hotel in either use areas to benefit both the Jefferson County R1 School, North Area Athletic Complex located across the street at 64th Avenue, as well as to benefit the technology and business parks within our own site. Use Area 3 would also allow for a church as long as the church is under 20,000 square feet. Commercial makes up approximately 7% of this overall site. There are 2 use areas for technology and business parks. Use Area 2 is approximately 138 acres. Use Area 4 is approximately 192 acres. As stated earlier, job creation is one of the primary goals of this development. These 2 use areas will allow for business and professional office space, as well as environmentally friendly research and development opportunities to hopefully foster development of ideas and concepts created at NREL and Colorado School of Mines. Use Area 2 would allow for medical facilities and laboratories. Use Area 4 would allow for the additional uses such as light manufacturing, processing and fabrication, custom work such as electrical, plumbing, or similar type shops. We would love to encourage a large veterinary clinic adjacent to the family equestrian and agricultural use area 8. 22% of this site is made up for technology and business parks. Our residential areas range from multifamily to single-family estates. Use areas 5 through 10 have been designed to allow for a variety type of housing to accommodate various price points. Based on the acreage of each use area, there is a maximum density that we would not be able to exceed. Use area 5 is approximately 16 acres. And if you take 6 to 10 dwelling units for that area, we could do 95 to 159 units. Use area 6 is approximately 24 acres and would afford 144 to 241 units. These two use areas are mixed-use residential areas due to the proximity of the intersection of Highway 93 and 64th Avenue. We envision multifamily structures not to exceed 46 feet or 3 stories for people of this community, including the young professionals who hopefully will be working in use areas 2 and 4, as well as the heroes of our community, such as firefighters and teachers. Our architectural standards will require the use of natural materials that are wrapped around all sides of the buildings. We ask for variations in facade through uses of porches, balconies, rooftop patios, and pitched roofs. Exterior walls must use a variety of architectural features, materials, and colors. Use area 7 is approximately 59 acres, which would currently allow for 29 2-acre lot sizes, 29 residential units at 2 acres. Use area 8 is approximately 98 acres, and there the vision is to have the family equestrian and farm located down here. We're proposing 2 35-acre lots. Use area 9 is approximately 86 acres, and you can do either 17 5-acre lots or 43 2-acre lots. Use area 10 is approximately 218 acres. That's located at the west side there. We've envisioned 10-acre lots up here to be more in companion with the surrounding areas. While residential uses make up 40% of this overall site, the housing density on these last 4 use areas have been kept to a minimum. Use areas 7 through 10 comprise 461 acres. However, our overall density will only allow for 58 to 84 dwelling units. Use area 11 is approximately 186 acres. This is the current extraction site of the quarry. Aggregate is being removed from the site, leaving behind a shale slope that would be ideal for water storage. Use area 12 is approximately 192 acres. As I stated earlier, the natural features found on this property are being maintained into the future. The existing hills and beautiful natural rolling terrain will maintain as an attractive part of this development. We have preserved this area as a benefit to the entire Keller Farm property. We want to encourage a live-work community, allowing pedestrian access from residential areas to the businesses. We also want to allow for community gardens, riding facilities, and trails. Conservation and project open lands make up 31% of our overall project. The North Plains Community Plan was recently updated in November 2011. This property is located within an activity center. That plan envisions the area around Keller Farm property for future residential, neighborhood-scale retail, and office development. Our plan, we believe, follows what's recommended. We are not allowing the potential density staff would like to see on our site. We have strived hard to achieve a plan that will provide jobs and housing opportunities to the community while maintaining the value of this beautiful property. We recognize what staff is proposing. However, we respectively decline to increase our densities nor to combine any of the use areas to allow for more urban dwelling units or office space. We have prepared a transportation study, Phase 1, which made recommendations for improvements based on our potential traffic generation and CDOT and Jefferson County roadway guidelines. The proposed traffic calculations as presented in our traffic study take into account the highest densities possible with each use area we propose. The uses in the Keller Farm ODP are designed to be implemented with or without the Beltway. We are aware that improvement to Highway 93 are necessary. Our development plan won't begin to take shape for several years. As we divide this land, we will be required to refine our traffic proposal, our traffic analysis, and update our studies in light of the conditions that exist at that time. Transportation needs of Keller Farm Properties development will be mitigated by transportation management efforts and on-site and off-site roadway improvements that have been specified through the Jefferson County Transportation Plans, which envision Highway 93 being improved to 2 or 3 through lanes in each direction. No new stop sign, new stop light will be added. Rather, the lighted intersections at 64th and at 58th Avenue will be redesigned to allow for four-way movement. CDOT has requested that eventually West 56th Avenue be redirected north through use areas 3 and 4 to align at the lighted intersection of 58th Avenue. We prefer that the right-of-way dedication be less than 150 feet and more commensurate with the other nearby development. If this is not negotiable, we would like the wording proposed by staff to be limited to 150 feet and not stated as a minimum of 150 feet. The proposed development plan sets aside 30% of Keller Farm property as natural area. These areas are the core areas for current wildlife, including the basalt hills and varying terrain. Current wildlife habitat quality is low due to the proximity of Highway 93, the quarry, and surrounding residential development. We have surveyed for Preble's mouse, according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Protocol, and no mouse were detected. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife have concurred, and they disqualified this property from their maps. This property is made up mostly of natural grasses and farmland. There are large willow trees located at the Van Bibber Creek bed that the family maintains as an asset to this property. We have taken that floodplain into account in our design. The written restrictions encourage the preservation of these trees. Improvements need to be made at the intersection of Highway 93 and 58th Avenue. However, we tried to pull that road south as soon as we could that would also accommodate Jefferson County's roadway guidelines. At the time of platting, the floodplain will be set aside into a no-build track and become a beautiful amenity to our Use Area 8, as well as the family equestrian area, or Use Area 4 and Use Area 8. We have designed the site with the project open area specifically as an amenity for the people who live and work on Keller Farm. We have made sure that there are linkages from each use area to one another. We have kept our own residents out of the floodplain by not including it into Use Area 12. We want that floodplain to be a visual amenity. With this in mind, we want to protect the natural floodplain and riparian area from the general public trail users. We propose a trail alongside the right-of-way of future alignment of 56th Avenue outside the natural floodplain and riparian area, which would be available to the general public. This will reduce conflict between trail users and still allow movement east and west through our site. We have met with staff and have reviewed their red mark comments regarding the trails. We would offer the following. Public trail linkages 8 to 11 feet wide along State Highway 93 from the intersections of 64th and 58th Avenue shall be provided within the right-of-way of State Highway 93 through coordination with CDOT and Jefferson County. A public trail 8 to 11 feet connecting the trail along State Highway 93 shall be provided from West 58th Avenue to the west side of Use Area 3 in a southerly direction, then along the West 56th Avenue to the southwest corner of Keller Farm property. That's not showing up there. At the time of platting, a buffer area along the Van Bibber Creek corridor will be incorporated into the plat. Width and location of buffer area shall be along the presently delineated floodplain of the Van Bibber Creek corridor. This is what we feel meets both the needs of the community while maintaining our vision of this site. North Table Mountain and Water Sanitation District has provided us with a will serve letter. Keller Farm property will pay for its demand at both the time of inclusion into the district as well as paying taxes as every other member of that district. As Jeannie stated earlier, we held a community meeting August 24th. We mailed out community notification of our rezoning application January 26, 2012, when we formally submitted our application. We also mailed out community notification of the public hearing on May 8th, posted the property on May 9th with 6 signs. They're all out there still today. We have received comments from some HOAs. We've also tried to evaluate their comments and made some changes, which included removing perimeter fencing as a use in our original ODP. We reduced the overall height limits of pole lighting, and we also encouraged the preservation of the willow trees. We'd like to thank staff for all their hard work on this case. Our case manager, Jeannie Schaefer, has been extremely professional throughout this process, and it has been a pleasure to work with her. I would conclude at this time and let you know that our entire design team is here with us tonight to help answer any questions that you may have, including Pat Horn, civil engineer with Martin & Martin, Mike Locha, transportation engineer with SN Locha, Wade Phillips, geotechnical engineer with Kumar & Associates, and Trent Miller, a wildlife biologist with Golder & Associates. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Olson.
Yes, can you elaborate a little on your connection there with South 56th Avenue? It looks like are you proposing a connection there into Area 4?
What we're proposing is to try to keep the public trails along the right-of-way. So
No,
yes.
I mean the road connection.
Oh, I'm sorry. Currently, right now, 56th Avenue is a road that comes out to Highway 93, and basically you could go full movement, but it's not very easy. Take a left and head north. CDOT has asked us to realign that road and basically make it intersect with 58th Avenue. So that's what you see up on the drawing there between use areas 3 and 4.
Okay, so you're going to abandon essentially the reach of 56 west of 93 for a certain portion and curve it to the north.
Correct,
And then
to bring it safely.
then make it come out a line with 58.
Yes.
Okay, is the what appears to be on your use area map, when you look at area 4, there appears to be a roadway that goes down and connects onto the existing portion of 56.
Yes.
Is that a connection?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman. Heather, from the, this is 29% commercial industrial use that you're going to have on the site. At build out of your project, ballpark, how many jobs is this site going to support? Jobs.
That would be, I always feel like you can't hear me. Is this on? Okay, I'm sorry. Approximately 9,400, and we will have some specific comments on that with regard to the economic impacts.
How would you just break that down generally in commercial versus industrial versus other kind of uses that you mentioned a couple of research and development ideas that could happen here.
Do you mean the square footage?
Just how many retail jobs versus R&D jobs versus manufacturing jobs?
That's something I might have to get back to you. Now, all of that is also very much an estimate.
I understand.
We have a variety of uses that we could make. We've tried to accommodate for the future a lot of different uses in these particular areas, so I can get back to you with some ranges.
Okay, now, can I ask you again later? Give me a few minutes to think about that. Or is that something you're not prepared to address tonight?
I must admit I did not bring a full report of that with me, but I have one in my office that I can. Do you have it with you? Okay. We are also going to have specific testimony with regard to this, and that may answer your questions. So can we, after that happens, see if you have additional questions, and then we can come up.
That would be helpful. Just so you understand why I'm asking. Large site, urban growth area. We've seen this case before. We supported you, but I think it's important to understand this is in terms of economic development and jobs. And so that's where I'm coming out. For 29% of the site is supporting jobs. We understand the intensity and the types of jobs.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Other questions? Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you, Chairman. And to the applicant, do you have square footage allocations or estimates of square footage by use? Could you share those with
Commissioner
us?
Rogers, we do. So for Technology and Business Park, use area 2 would be upwards of 2.3 million square feet potential. Use area 4 would be up to 2.7 million square feet potential. Technology and Business. Now the commercial areas, use area 1 would afford up to 2.3 million square feet of commercial. And use area 3 is smaller. It would afford up to 461,000 square feet.
What's that total, please? And I can
So
do it.
for commercial, it totals about 2.7 million square feet. And for business, it includes about almost 5 million.
Wow. Thank you.
Heather, in your testimony, you had a trail proposal. Is that in writing, or how can we get a better handle on that?
It's
We need something in front of us.
So in front of you is what we are proposing.
Is there a way to get a copy of that to distribute to us? Thank you. That's all I need. Okay, we can ask a lot of questions later. We can open testimony up to HOAs in public. So we'll first start with HOAs, and as a reminder, HOAs, registered HOAs, have up to 10 minutes for their testimony. First on the list is Parkview Villas, and then City of Golden.
Can you get the microphone on?
Hold on just a second. There's some issue with the, is there,
Yeah, it's a little staticky when you sit in the back.
someone have their cell phone on in the back? Did they, please check. Is it still staticky in the back? Can you still hear okay, or is it just annoying?
Can you hear us?
Okay, we'll proceed. Go ahead then. State your name and address, please. And be sure to speak into the microphone.
Right. My name is John Krajewski. I'm a resident of Parkview Villas, and my last name is spelled Krajewski. And we're at 5607 Gilbert Court. It's in the unincorporated part of Golden. And I'm here tonight representing Parkview Villas Board. They've asked me to take up for this because many of the members could not be here tonight. I've worked with the committee at Parkview Villas, analyzing all the information we've received so far from the county about this project. We have submitted written comments, and I think most of the written comments so far have been are now on the record with the commission. As a preliminary, I'd just like to say right now we are not in favor of the rezoning for a few, I think, very significant reasons. The biggest one is that we think it's premature to try and evaluate what's going to be happening. Myself included, I'm not a long-term resident of Colorado. I've been here a very short time, a couple of years. And coming here and seeing what is proposed and what all the complications are in the area and the other developments going on, it's just difficult to see that making all these, or a person's trying to make all these plans for a development that is really very generally described. It's kind of vague. I mean, I realize you have to start somewhere, but I don't know if rezoning from a rural agricultural area is the most appropriate thing to do to a high density and heavy development area. And there are other organizations around Foothills organization and SYNC. They both have very different opinions, and we're just going on board with our own opinion. We are registered with as many informational groups as we can. What I'm going to do first is do a little more in development of our own comments. The latest ones we developed and submitted were the big issue of traffic, and which has been discussed here and presented by different people so far, and the developer included in their consultant. We agree that 93 is a can of worms. I mean, for the short time I've been here, it's just incredible, the conflict that's going on. And we're very concerned because Parkview Villas, I think you may all know where it is. It's right on 93. It's our front doors. And right at that intersection of 58th and 93, that presents a serious problem in transportation and traffic. And just to comment on the extension of 56 to 58th, we have reservations about that being able to be accomplished easily and effectively. The next issue is the Van Bibber Creek portion of the site. We agree with the, we don't totally disagree with the developer. If this rezoning takes place, we're cognizant of that. In the fact of that Van Bibber Creek, we appreciate the consideration of keeping the creek in place, not paving it over, keeping the trees there, and the 100-year floodplain and the area around it. I don't think they had much choice. In good conscience, I don't think it was would be a smart thing to do. And from a natural condition standpoint, you've got a creek going through there, and there would be federal permits under the Clean Water Act that would have to be acquired in order to do anything significant and reroute or cover over Van Bibber Creek. But I think that question has been answered. The mixed commercial use is the next issue on Area 3. We've stated comments before in our first set, and we still agree that Area 3 presents a problem for us because it's focusing commercial development right in front of us, or right on Route 93, and managing that and the traffic and the communication and the connection, we don't feel it could be done very effectively. We'd like that to be proved.
Hold on a second, sir.
Sure.
Jeannie, could you put up this map on the screen so everybody can look? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I've got 30 seconds additional.
You just reminded us of that.
Okay, and some of the more specific issues, we've addressed traffic conditions, on-site conditions for traffic, but not only that, but for people in Parkview Villas. We've already had fatalities along 93 in the vicinity of our development. Plus, we've had people go off the road and ride through fences and stop short of the homes. So, yeah, we agree. Something needs to be done there. The North Plains action plan for open space and trails. We agree that something needs to be done there, and involved with the traffic conditions and the conflict over what's going to happen with 93 or north of 93 with the Jeffco Parkway. We're very concerned about that. Sound walls, we've made a statement on that. We're not in favor of sound walls. There are different ways. In fact, the treed area along Van Buren Creek is a good example of how you can mitigate sound problems, and not only for us, but for the companies that will be working in the new development. Building heights, we think 46 feet, so close to where we live, and for the people nearby, because there are a residential development all along 58th Street all the way up to Easley and 64th. 46 feet is just too much of an intrusion. We would appreciate, or we really need lower building heights for the commercial development. And when you mention hotels and other R&D development buildings, they tend to be higher than what we would normally see in a residential area. Nobody's talked about weather. I come from east of the Mississippi. I won't mention the name, but we're known for snow. And when we first moved here and we moved in, we had 3 storms of winds over 70 miles an hour. And when it snows here, it really complicates issues. So we need the developer, if they're going to be doing something, is consider the traffic hazard. I mean, there's a sign right on 50 on 93 as you go north about the wind, high wind velocities, and I hope they take that into account, because I think that is, well, we think that is a hazard. Water supply, there's no question that water supply needs to be considered, and it's good that they are going to have a reserve in the either quarry, but I'm talking about the potential use of this development, and in the future, there's a new development just up 58th under construction as we speak of 50 homes, and going north on 93. They all have been surveyors and people with the company that wants to develop another 200. I got that 200 residences in that area. So that's going to place another demand on infrastructure. Okay, in summary, I'd just like to reiterate that the traffic problem is probably the greatest one facing us, and I don't know if the Jeffco Parkway is going to be the solution. We're pleased that the traffic in the area is going to be considered, and we hope it receives very serious consideration and the problem is resolved. That's our, the main reason behind our request that this rezoning not be allowed. We think an extension of time for additional work. We didn't get a lot of information initially about this project, and I don't know if it's our fault or whoever. I'm not pointing fingers, but all the documentation, all the data that's used by all the people back here, they do this for a living, and we just live. And so we worked hard to get to this point where we are, and some of us have experience in this, but if there is a way of getting an extension of time for reconsideration so we can prepare our case further, we'd like to do that. And we'd also like to extend an invitation to the Keller Farms developer that we work with them to resolve some issues. We don't want to stick them with them and then keep coming back and complain that, oh, this isn't right, that isn't right. So we can sit down with them, and we would request that opportunity. And the urban growth area, that's an issue that we were a little bit surprised. We weren't aware that that was going to be part and parcel of this, and so we had no information. And I see my time is up, but I guess that's enough.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Is there any questions? Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your submittal documents with the outline of all of your points. It's very helpful for us.
That's one of our talented people on our staff.
Thank you. It's very helpful to have that. You spoke about your concerns with the relocation of Highway 56th Street.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more in detail what your concerns are?
Okay.
You live in that neighborhood, and I need to understand that a little bit.
Okay. 56th and 58th, they both run off of 93. And from what we've heard so far and what our interpretation is that they're bringing a road from West 56th over through Area 3 over to the intersection of 58th. To me, that's a formidable task because I know you can't go directly across 58th into Van Bibber Creek. It passes under 93 right now. But I don't know how you would do that. We're not highway engineers, but we need some reassurance that traffic conditions don't become any worse. I don't want to hear any more sirens. And the county has creates a truck weigh station on 93 right in that area, right on 56th. And it's there probably in the good weather, probably 4 days a week, it seems, or at least 3. And so I don't know what they're going to do, but that's their problem, not mine.
Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony. And I will remind you all who are testifying as HOA or individual testimony that your questions and concerns that you raise can be answered and will be answered by either staff or the applicant after your testimony is finished. So be assured that some of your questions will
That's
at least be addressed.
That's our reason why we offered to sit down with people. I can sit down with people here, and if they come up later, we are prepared to see if we can give an answer that satisfies people.
Okay, thank you. Next, the City of Golden. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Steve Glick. I'm the Planning and Development Director for the City of Golden.
Please spell your last name.
Glueck. Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much for allowing me to come and visit you again. It's always fun to come and visit somebody else's planning board. And you'll recall last time I was here, I didn't do a very good job of articulating why I didn't think this should be an activity center, and I'm not going to go over any of that unless you force me to again. But I did want to talk about a couple things, mostly about zoning, not about this case. And that's why I wasn't sure what to write, Mr. Chair, when you said, are you for or against it? And I said I wanted to testify about the rezoning.
We won't hold that against you.
Okay. Well, you guys are so kind. At any rate, in your packet should have been, I think was a February 21st, 2012 letter from me that raised a couple of issues. And the very first one is that were I you or your staff, I would not want to be entertaining a zoning of this property at this time. And I understand that the applicant has a vision for their land, and their vision seems to be in concert with the North Plains plan, which is cool. That's handy when it happens that way. But in my opinion, the best way for you to go forward, if you as a county really embrace this vision, is what you ought to do is you ought to be doing a activity center master plan amendment to the North Plains plan and not a zoning. And the reason why is that in the end, zoning is not really a policy tool. Zoning is an administrative tool. And I've spent way too much of the last several decades trying to figure out what 20 and 30-year-old ODPs mean and trying to deal with them at times when the owner, the new owner, the neighbors, and the city all can't find an easy way to deal with the fact that what they thought was a good idea 20 or 30 years ago about a development detail doesn't make sense anymore. And so what kind of bothers me about a PUD like this is it spends way too much time talking about fences and accessory uses and setbacks and not just, if the big picture stuff is the vision that Mr. Keller has, do a policy thing, do a preliminary PUD, do something that talks about policy and vision and land use, and leaves the setbacks and whether you can have 4 dogs or 3 dogs, and how high the building is for another day. I'll give you one example. I wasn't going to pick at Mr. Rogers, but I need to. One of the things that I have dealt with in the last 15 years is that certain types of industrial and especially research buildings are built much differently than they used to. Lab buildings need a much taller floor-to-floor height than they used to, and I don't think 46 feet is high enough. With due respect to the neighbors who want shorter buildings, you may not be able to build the buildings we want in those business parks with a 46-foot high height. Industrial users want taller, clear stories up to the ceilings. The details that you put in here now, probably none of them will be relevant when it develops, if it develops as slow as the applicant thinks. So that's my suggestion as to why zoning doesn't make sense. The other one is that I have a fear that the current LDR process that assumes that by taking traffic and infrastructure impacts phase by phase as it's platted, that will be adequate to both cover the cumulative impacts and then fairly share the fair share burden of that among the phases isn't going to work. Platting does a good job of identifying infrastructure impacts.
Speaking of the mic, please.
Oh, sorry. Platting, when it works, does a good job of dealing with the infrastructure impacts on site and sometimes immediately adjacent in discrete little chunks. And I'm not an expert on your LDRs, but I've read them a few times. There doesn't seem to be a way in the current LDRs, and my side comment was going to be, well, if they're not really going to develop till when they say they are, maybe you have a chance to fix your LDRs. I don't think there's something in there that protects you and me, the Jefferson County citizen, from either not having the cumulative impacts addressed, or more likely what happens is the early phases skate on their fair share, and the late phases get stuck with a disproportionate burden for the impacts because we didn't have a mechanism in place to plan for it up front. With that, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Commissioner Olson?
Yes, thank you for coming and testifying. You mentioned you wanted us to think about things like policies and implementations and preliminary. We do have a process for that, and our comprehensive plan is our policies are contained in that, and that's why we passed the North Plains area plan. So the next step, logically, is this ODP, which would get into more specifics. And that's why we're in this process. We're one step beyond the policies. And if addressing your concerns about if there's some change in use, we do have a process, and that's called an amended ODP. So we can deal with changes in the future. But thank you for your presentation.
Other questions? Thank you very much. Next on the sign-up sheet was Friends of Foothills, but Bob, and I can't read your last name, Friends of Foothills is not registered with the county and therefore cannot testify as an HOA, but you can as an individual citizen. And
okay, I think my comments will be brief anyway. I don't think I'll need 10 minutes for this.
Good. So we'll list you as an individual citizen.
Okay.
And then next is Walter Schell after that.
Well, my name is Bob Croftly. I'll spell it Kropfli. I live at 9041 East Ridge Road, Golden, unincorporated Jefferson County. I'd like to call your attention to the letter sent to you by Tom Hoffman, president of the Friends of the Foothills, the group I thought I was representing here tonight. I guess I'm representing myself, though. We expressed the views of over 300 concerned residents in the nearby area. The letter that you have emphasizes 5 points that should be considered when deciding on the zoning request. Those points are, number one, it seems to us that the request is being filed way too early. My understanding is that Mr. Keller is not interested in developing this property for up to 15 years, sometime after the mining operation is completed. So what's the rush? A lot can happen in 15 years, and the zoning change can be appropriately considered at that time. Point number two, traffic. You've heard about that already, and you probably know. You've driven 93. We all know 93 is a mess. Adding another subdivision along 93 before improvements are made makes no sense. No zoning change should be considered until after significant improvements are made or even planned to Highway 93. Point three, this area is rich with wildlife, a major attraction to the area and a reason why many of us choose to live here. A new gated subdivision would not be sensitive to wildlife. The area should be protected, not developed. Furthermore, upzoning of this area would make it much more difficult for Jeffco Open Space to purchase this land if they so chose to do that in the future. Point four, the area is outside of the DRCOG urban growth boundary. I wonder why we even have such guidelines if they're repeatedly ignored by county governments. The last point is cost. A subdivision like this almost never pays for itself. A recent study done about growth in Jefferson County reaffirms that result. The development will be just another burden for taxpayers to bear, but with more disadvantages than advantages. The issue of property rights is bound to come up if it hasn't already, and we totally agree with the principle of reasonable expectation. That is, the government should avoid interfering with what a property owner would reasonably expect to earn from his or her property. So we support whatever development that is allowed by the current zoning designation. However, we also believe that the landowner does not have the right to demand or even expect that zoning would be upgraded simply to increase the property value, especially when the community as a whole would suffer, as noted above. Property rights of neighbors who might be compromised by such development should be considered as well. So let me summarize this point by saying that denying upzoning is not a taking of property rights because it does not diminish the reasonable expectation of the value of the property. That reasonable expectation would be maintained, not diminished, and we're all in favor of that. So let the property owner develop it in any way he chooses under the current zoning status. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next is Walter Schell, and then John Tuthill, and then Laura Bellanswer.
My name is Walter Schell, and my wife Diane. I have a statement here, and I guess you're all getting a copy of that. If you have any questions, please defer them to my wife, as I broke my hearing aid a couple of days ago, and I've only got one good ear and one hearing aid, so right now I'm rather handicapped. So, dear Planning Commission members and staff, we are longtime residents of Jefferson County. Diane is a native of Jefferson County, born and raised here. We have received the Keller Farm property proposal for rezoning and are in support of the proposal, and to encourage you to vote in support of the proposal for the following reasons. The Keller Farm property plan is in keeping with Keller's long-standing stewardship of their land and the value they place on the heritage and future of Jefferson County. The land use plan is exceptional in that it creates a framework for future development and a vibrant mix of uses while keeping the topography and rolling landscape intact that is a signature of the part of Jefferson County. This rezoning will create a platform for job creation and for Jefferson County to attract businesses. It will also provide housing and services close to jobs that Jefferson County will need to sustain its economic health for the long term. Once again, we both encourage you to vote in support of the proposal made by the Keller family. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Any questions? Thanks for your testimony. John Tuthill? Oh, you said no, but do you want to change your mind?
No. I thought I was just signing a sign-in sheet.
Oh, I see. Well, be careful about those things. Okay, Laura Belanger, excuse me. And then Steve Smith. I can get Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. My name's Laura Belanger. It's Belanger, and I live in Apple Meadows, which is about a quarter mile east of the proposed development, the Keller Farms property.
Could you pull that microphone closer to you?
Sure.
Thanks.
Too short. And I recognize the interest of both the Keller family as well as the county in developing homes as well as jobs, but I think that this property west of 93 is the wrong place to do that. It's essentially contiguous with the scenic mountain backdrop area. It's extremely unique, and once it's developed, we can't recover that. And I know people who drive up and down that road and who live near there really value that scenic backdrop, and so that's my main issue with it. I also am second most of what Friends of the Foothills, or the person who thought that they were representing Friends of the Foothills, said. But one issue I wanted to raise today is regarding the water supply. I was looking at the county zoning resolution, and I'm not sure I interpreted it correctly, but I interpret it to say that proof of water supply needs to be provided as part of this process, and that one way to do that is to provide a letter from a public water utility saying that they'll provide water supply. And I know there are 2 letters in the record from North Table Mountain Water and Sanitation District, but I've spoken to them, and what they are actually committed to, they've committed to serving both water treatment as well as the sewer, but they do not have the water supply. The developer needs to provide an equivalent water supply to North Table Mountain Water and Sanitation District prior to them providing service to them. So it seems to me that this application is incomplete, and I'm a water resources engineer, and I know that getting 1,000 acre-feet or more, which is what would be needed for this development of firm yield water supply, is very difficult to do these days. It would probably need to be purchased. I don't think you could develop new supply, and I think that is something that's lacking in this application, and I would like to get more information from the developer, from the Keller family, on what their water supply is that they see being available for this development. And then another thing I just wanted to raise is that staff said that regarding the traffic study, that 2035 was build out. And if you look at the traffic study, it's not build out. That's only 25% of build out. So there has not been a traffic study for full build out for the development. And I think that's a key point. Because again, as everyone else has already said, the Route 93 corridor is already very heavily congested, and that traffic study only addresses a quarter of what the Keller family is proposing. And if you were to go with the staff's recommendation, it would be even a lot more impact. And the same goes true for the water supply. The staff's recommendation will require a lot more water than the 1,065 to almost 1,300 acre-feet that the Keller proposal thinks would be necessary in water supply. And thank you. Those are all my comments.
Thank you. Any questions? And we'll address your concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Steve Smith, and then Rick Rollins after that.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Steve Smith. I'm a resident of Arvada, 8773 Independence Way. The little note back here says I should spell my name, S-M-I-T-H. I've been a resident of Jefferson County since 1970, and I have to think it was the Planning Commission and your forefather boards that allowed Jefferson County to grow in the way it did. And as a result, I was able to raise a son here, and my sisters were able to raise their children in Jefferson County. We're now looking at what will our children, what will our grandchildren be doing. And the issue on the rezoning here is that we'll have a plan for future growth. It's something that I had to do a little research into. I wanted to make sure that the Keller family members for many years have shown stewardship to the fact that I've been a longtime resident and I've known the Kellers. Actually, I've known Jeff's father longer than Jeff and have not had an opportunity to go to the quarry, but know that through their stewardship, when I drive by that area, I can't see it from the freeway. And one of the things in the development plan that I really enjoyed was the fact that they are going to maintain the geographic topography that currently exists there. Approving this rezoning is in alignment with the community's long-term planning. Indeed, the Keller Farm property is identified as an activity center, and as I said, we're looking toward the future. I'm looking toward my son, his children, having a place to go. And it was interesting, the nursing home situation kind of hit with me. In 15 years, I may be needing that facility. The Keller's community-based plan developed with community input and guidance envisions the area around the Keller Farm property for future residential, neighborhood-scale retail, and office development. I don't think the future generations are going to be leaving the area to work. They're going to try to stay as close to home, stay as close to resources. This mixed use affords that opportunity. So on that note, I'd like to thank you for the fact that you're planning for my future, my grandchildren's future, and being that I don't spend a lot of time in front of the commission, I only brought one copy, so I'll leave it with staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Wait, hold on a second. Is there any questions? You may go.
I thought I'd get out of here before anything went wrong.
You did such a good job, we have no questions.
Oh,
Thank
okay,
you.
thank you.
All right, Rick, I think it's Rick Rollins. Is Mr. Rollins here? Oh, he said no. Sorry. Andy Simpson, and then Lou Horbreck. He said no. So Matt something after that. Brittle on Salvia Street. So you're Rick.
No, I'm Andy Simpson.
Or Andy Simpson, excuse me. Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
Andy Simpson. I live at 5355 Pine Ridge Road in Golden. I'm going to be directly impacted by this property as we live directly southwest of it. I travel 56th Avenue every day, and as a preliminary matter, I'm pretty sure that I did not see particularly the Tut Hill property posted until tonight. Therefore, I don't think this hearing is appropriate because I don't think there was proper notice. That's number one. Beyond that, please, at the very least, do not increase the densities requested. I can't, it's beyond me that staff is trying to further denigrate this property. Whatever happened to the view sheds? You're taking our view sheds. This is not compatible with the surrounding uses. The surrounding uses are residential, open space. There's no commercial. There's no industrial. I mean, to say otherwise is ludicrous. The impact is going to be significant. The staff says that air quality will not be impacted. I mean, that's just crazy. If you're going to have 9,000 people working here in a day, and to say that local air quality will not be impacted, that's just not credible. The impacts are going to be significant. The compatibility with the existing and allowed uses is just non-existent. I know that you cleverly amended the north area plan to include this property. It's kind of a two-step dance that you did. I think that was disingenuous. You were talking about stewardship of the land and preservation of our future, and what that is you should leave it for a view shed and what we all value most in Jefferson County, and that is open space. And I think also that Area 12 in particular, even if you approve this, should not be private open space. It should be public open space. So if you take away our views, at least we could, the public could use it. For all the reasons stated before by the city, by the Friends of the Foothills, I think the water issue, I haven't looked at that, but I think that's a killer, probably right away. I'll be happy to look at that more before, if you pass it, that it goes to the commissioners. One thing in particular on Area 8, if it's 98 acres and the developer proposes only 2 houses, I'm curious what happens to the remaining 28 acres. And also, if you move 56th Avenue over to 58th Avenue, you're going to funnel all the traffic now up 56th and down Pine Ridge Road, and that's a road that has 30 houses on it and probably gets maybe 100 cars a day. I don't know what the traffic count is, but it's rural, it's quiet. You can hear your neighbor a quarter of a mile away talking on their porch, and that's all going to go away. Thank you.
Any questions? Thanks for your testimony. Matt Bird or Birdie? Is Matt here? Don't see him. Patricia Burston? Patricia?
Silverstein?
Oh, I thought that was your S was your middle name or middle initial. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Commissioners. I'm Patricia Silverstein. I reside at 8138 West Cayley Place in unincorporated Jefferson County, and I'm also the President and Chief Economist of Development Research Partners. We're a Jefferson County-based economic consulting company. We specialize in economic development research and economic and fiscal impact analysis, and I'm here tonight in support of the Keller Farm project. Based on our analysis of Keller Farm, this mixed-use commercial and residential development will have significant positive benefits for Jefferson County economy. I would like to summarize these benefits for you, including both the economic benefits, which really look at the business-to-business, resident-to-business type of spending, as well as the fiscal benefits or the county revenue that would be derived from the project. And we measure these benefits in 2 different phases. First of all, in terms of the construction phase, and then secondly, in terms of the ongoing annual operations of the property there. So first of all, with the construction phase, these are one-time benefits that occur only during the construction of the project. The development of the homes and the business space at Keller Farm is estimated to cost over $500 million, and this does not include any of the infrastructure costs, so we do feel that this estimate is indeed conservative. Isolating those construction costs to just that spending, which we expect to happen in Jefferson County, we estimate that the total value, the total economic benefits related to this project total $155 million in Jefferson County. We expect employment, the construction employment related to this will be about 2,300 workers. Again, trying to identify just those workers that would be generated here in Jefferson County and also the indirect effects of those employment. We estimate that those workers will be about 800 construction workers, and the indirect workers, again, those workers would be some of the supply companies and that type of thing related to the construction employment. Then in terms of the fiscal benefit to the county during that construction phase, including the sales tax on construction materials, traffic impact fees, we estimate this to be over $17 million. Now, turning then to the ongoing annual operations, I mean, we certainly recognize that those benefits begin the time when the first resident takes over a home here in the Keller Farm project, or indeed when the first employee is hired. And so these benefits do indeed ramp up over time, and I'm going to talk about it more in terms of at a build-out. First of all, the ongoing annual value of all the business spending, resident spending, visitor spending is estimated to be about $2.7 billion at build-out. Now, if we again isolate that spending to just Jefferson County, we find that the direct and indirect benefits, economic benefits of all of the spending at the Keller Farm project will result in an annual economic impact to Jefferson County of about $1.8 billion. Businesses located at Keller Farm are estimated to employ about 9,400 workers. About 4,000 of these workers we expect will be Jefferson County residents. These resident workers, then they have these spin-off effects all throughout the county, such that the direct and indirect employment just in Jefferson County related to this, we estimate to be about 7,800 workers. The business activity, the resident spending, the visitor spending generates sales tax, property tax, other county revenues for Jefferson County. Offsetting this revenue by the cost of providing those governmental services, because we do know that there are costs of providing those services, reveals that the Keller Farm community will have a positive net fiscal benefit to Jefferson County of about $3.5 million each year. Again, that's at build-out. So the Keller Farm community will have a large economic and fiscal benefit to Jefferson County, and it is for this reason that I respectfully request your approval of the Keller Farm rezoning plan. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Questions? Okay, Commissioner Ferguson and then Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you for your testimony. My question is, the numbers that, the data that you have, is that based on the applicant's plan as submitted, or the county's recommendation to increase commercial industrial?
Our estimations are based upon the applicant's plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Anna. Thank you for those numbers. When you talked about your projections for the economic impact at build-out, at 100% build-out,
correct,
are those numbers based upon today's dollars?
They are. In all of our estimations, we do base the values of construction activity and kind of the employment per square footage and that type of thing based on today's numbers. Correct.
Not the value at that point in time.
No, correct. So it has, we in some cases, in some of these estimations, you might want to do a net present value, which basically assumes that you're putting in some type of inflation rate and then discounting it, so that we're not doing any type of estimations on that hand. We are just using this in today's dollars.
But it would be significantly higher.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Any other questions? Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next is Joanne Seaman. Joanne here, and then Carol Chapman is next.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Seaman, S-E-A-M-A-N. My family and I have been residents of Jefferson County since 1998, and I am here to support the rezoning of the Keller Farm property proposal, and I ask you also to recommend approval to the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners. The following are some reasons that I am in favor of this rezoning. The plan for Keller Farm property is a unique mix of the heritage and the future of Jefferson County. By combining equestrian uses and large estates with new neighborhoods and job centers, the long-term promise of Keller Farm property is a positive legacy for the Kellers and for Jefferson County. The long-term plan for Keller Farm property looks out decades ahead with a vision that maintains the land's natural rolling terrain and the land's use as a family equestrian center while keeping the decades-long identity of the site as an employment center. In the long term and in the decades ahead, Jefferson County will need opportunities that support the community and our economy, and Keller Farm property is an extraordinary opportunity. When the mining and the asphalt operations have ceased many years down the road, this rezoning will have created the platform for a technology campus and or research and development facility with high quality and high paying jobs. Lastly, having had the opportunity to work with and do business with the Keller family, I can speak to the integrity that they have and to the way that they do business. As a parent of 2 daughters, I'd like to think that they could someday maybe live and work at this location in our community. What a unique and special opportunity for Jefferson County and for future generations. Please vote to support this rezoning, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Thanks for your testimony. Next is Carol Chapman, and then Michelle Claymore.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Carol Chapman, that's C-H-A-P-M-A-N, and I live in unincorporated Jefferson County at 16419 West Ellsworth Drive. I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight to express my support for the rezoning of the Keller Farm property. I've been a resident of Jefferson County for over 2 decades, and I care deeply about the quality of life in our community. I've had the opportunity to thoroughly review the Keller Farm property rezoning proposal and believe that it represents a thoughtful vision for how the Keller property can transform from its current mining and asphalt operations into a mixed-use community that will complement and enhance the surrounding area. The Keller Farm proposal is an example of how we can accommodate growth in our county in a way that's mindful and prudent. Jefferson County's comprehensive plan, including the recently updated North Plains area plan, clearly articulates the need for a strong vision regarding growth. The Keller Farm property plan puts forth just such a vision, and I believe the Keller family should be commended for this extremely positive step forward for Jefferson County. And I have to say, on a personal note, like several other people, I would love to live in a community like this, and I'd love to see my children live there too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Thanks for your testimony. Michelle? And then we have one person who has no down to testify but crossed it out. Carper? Samdia Carper? Not sure. Okay, go ahead.
Great. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Michelle Claymore, C-L-A-Y-M-O-R-E, and I'm the Vice President for Jefferson County Economic Development Corporation, or jeffco EDC for short. Our address is 1667 Cole Boulevard in Golden. Jeffco EDC is a not-for-profit 501c6 organization whose mission is to support economic development throughout Jefferson County. I am here tonight to speak in strong support of the Keller Farm Development Plan. Development at Keller Farms offers many benefits from an economic and community standpoint. In Jefferson County, we have a great quality of life, but our organization believes that quality of life begins with a good job. so you can put food on the table, feed your family, put a roof over your head, etc. Jefferson County is a bedroom community. Right now, we have about 100,000 people in our workforce that live in Jefferson County. Jefferson County is a bedroom community. Right now, we have about 100,000 more people in our workforce that live in Jefferson County than we have jobs for. That's over 100,000 people that are on the road every morning leaving Jefferson County to go to work elsewhere because we don't have enough job opportunities closer to home. Keller Farms can bring jobs closer. We see this project as a very significant economic engine for Jefferson County. The project itself has the potential to create an estimated 9,400 new primary jobs in nearly 4 million square feet of new real estate over the next 30-plus years, jobs that are greatly needed. This project could help attract the next generation of legacy companies in Jefferson County, such as Miller Coors, Lockheed Martin, Coors Tech, and our newest corporate citizen, the Coleman Company. Gallup CEO Jim Clifton talks about the importance for communities to create new jobs in his book, The Coming Jobs War. Global competition for new jobs in the 21st century is fierce. Finding ways to attract young entrepreneurs to our community is a key strategy, according to Mr. Clifton. So how do we attract the young entrepreneurs to Jefferson County? The county is challenged as a bedroom community with an aging population and aging real estate. We have the oldest median age of any county in metropolitan Denver. We also lack established employment centers with shovel-ready sites ready for development. In other words, if a Fortune 500 company came to us right now and asked for a 25-acre commercial or R&D site to put a corporate campus and or research laboratory on that would employ in excess of 500 people with, say, average salaries of $90,000, and they wanted property that has all the entitlements and utilities in place so that they can start construction immediately, we would have very few options in Jefferson County to show them. Our lack of available commercial properties ready for development can hinder our ability to compete for jobs now and in the future. With the planned mixed-use development at Keller Farms, we have an opportunity to attract young families, young entrepreneurs, and new legacy companies to Jefferson County, an opportunity to provide jobs closer to home for our citizens. Keller Farms is a terrific new project, and I ask for your support of the planned development rezoning. Thank you.
Questions? Thanks for your testimony. That's all the, please, okay, I was just going to say, anyone else who wants to testify, come on down, and you're first. Anyone else who would like to testify? Were you sworn in, ma'am?
I was not.
Okay, could you stand to be sworn in? Stay standing to be sworn in.
Okay, please raise your right hand. You solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before this commission is the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Esther Kettering, Kettering, and I'm Senior Vice President at Cassidy Turley Fuller Real Estate. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the Keller Farm Properties proposal. And to give you just a moment of my background, I've been at Cassidy Turley Fuller Real Estate for about 12 years, serving clients in land and industrial properties as well as other varieties of commercial property, predominantly in central Jefferson County. Prior to that, I was at Coors in the real estate department for over 20 years and ended my career there as developing 12,000 acres and selling them in an orderly fashion. I've served on the board of directors of the Jefferson County Economic Development Commission for 8 years, and I served as chairman of Golden's Economic Development Commission for 4 years. I'm currently serving on the advisory council of Colorado Brownfields Foundation. So I'm here to express my opinion on this project from the point of view of the need for industrial property in Jefferson County. And I have a letter to read into the record with some backup data attached. This letter is to encourage your approval and support of the proposal to rezone the Keller Farm property from currently allowed agricultural uses to PD planned development, allowing residential, commercial, and industrial uses, as well as continuing agricultural uses and incorporating private open lands. I'm requesting this of the Commission on behalf of several of my clients, most of whom are local business owners. Central Jefferson County is a coveted location for all types of industry, ranging from manufacturing to high-tech research and development. Businesses are drawn by proximity and access to the Colorado School of Mines, National Renewable Energy Labs, the U.S. Federal Center, Miller Coors Brewery, Ball Corporation, Coors Tech, and Terumo BCT, formerly BCT Caridian Operations. Vacancy in Central Jefferson County in industrial space as well as flex office industrial product, such as MIE Properties Corporate Center located on West Colfax and C470, for example, has historically been lower than that of the 7-county Denver metro area at large. Right now, industrial property vacancy in Central Jefferson County is 3%. That is just recently reduced from about 5.4% as the result of 2 major leases in the Coors Technology Center. That's how little space we have available for business growth in the county. Quality business facilities in Jefferson County the quality of business facilities in Jefferson County is generally higher than that of most of the rest of the metro area. A key element in maintaining this level of economic health and quality is to provide the community long-term with facilities to grow existing business and employment in the area. This plan for long-term growth is the foundation to sustainable communities, especially when combined with mixed uses in a master plan project, providing opportunities for people to live, work, shop, and play without commuting great distances. It takes a long time, usually years, to deliver finished developable sites for building facilities. In contrast, businesses often decide very quickly on the need for growth or new technologies. Without readily available finished business park sites, the community will lose out on business retention and growth to other jurisdictions more able to deliver a building permit-ready site complete with zoning in place and available utilities. The Keller Farm property is Jefferson County's ticket to a sustainable future, assuring the young people in our community of meaningful primary employment for years to come. As developer of the Coors Technology Center, a 375-acre business park in this market, I can testify that this park, Coors Technology Center, is essentially built out, and from inception to completion, from 1980 to today, the duration of this project has been 32 years. Keller Farm property is longer. The time is now to provide the community and its existing employment institutions with assurance of room to grow long-term and a continuing ability to invest in the high quality of life offered by this locale. I encourage your approval of this important zoning change. Thank you.
Any questions? Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you. Based on your experience, have you had occasions where you've worked with clients that weren't able to find the adequate space within the West Denver metro area and
Absolutely.
had to go somewhere
Absolutely.
else? Can you describe, just briefly, the extent and magnitude of that? Are we talking about small users, larger users?
I think we're talking about larger users predominantly. I think we're talking about headquarters-type users. We have very few remaining sites available for a headquarters type of campus, such as, I have to look up the name because Terumo BCT, used to be Gambro, used to be Cobe. I think that a really good example is the DeVita moving its headquarters into the Central Business District of Denver. We simply don't have the ability to accommodate an employment center of that size without a new program. Some of the municipalities in Jefferson County have put more focus on developing retail properties over business parks, let's say, than, it's my opinion that than they should. because I think that we might be, in some of the municipalities in Jeffco, might be over-retailed. And a retail job is not a primary job. We need primary employment, engineers, researchers, et cetera, to earn a salary so that somebody can go shop in the retail stores so that the retail employee can make something above or at minimum wage. And it's just part of the formula. So with my primary focus being Central Jeffco, and about 80% of Jeffco's business, primary employment properties, is in this area between, let's say, 72nd and Alameda. It's just right in the breadbasket of Jeffco. This is where people want to be, and it's because they have this proximity factor with all these research sources and Federal Center and Colorado School of Mines and so forth. Welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Could I just add on to what Commissioner Rogers asked about? So I think what you're telling us is these jobs are important, these employers are important. We've heard testimony tonight that, well, looking at zoning is just premature at this time. Would you agree with that, or is it better to have the underlying zoning in place so that these type of employers have sites that they can look at and they're that much closer to getting permits?
No, zoning is the long lead item because it does take months and maybe years to deliver what I'll call a finished lot. A finished lot is, let's say, a 5 or 10 acre site for a business, or larger, 50-acre site for somebody who wants to develop a campus type of environment. The zoning precedes everything, and there are a lot of decisions to be made. You'll notice that I didn't make any comments about road alignment or width of walk or number of trees, the caliper of trees, that sort of thing. It's because that will work itself out in the platting process. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, literally, because you could probably tell me a few things about the platting process. But there's a place and a time for that. The zoning precedes everything, and this is following on the comprehensive plan, saying, okay, we want to set this area aside for our long-term growth. And if a company comes along and you say, well, this is zoned agricultural, and yes, it could be yours, the reaction is usually, well, let's just go someplace else. That's a barrier to entry. It's really, really a big bridge to cross. So, no, I don't think it's premature at all. I think that this build-out is, I mean, I'm guessing, everybody's guessing, it's 50 years. I mean, the Coors Technology Center is a third the size, and there might be 2 or 3 available sites remaining in the park. They're small. Usually you find that the leftovers are, in fact, the leftovers. There's a site there that's kind of hilly. Nobody really wants to build on that. They want flat, square sites. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
One more.
Okay.
To your point about zoning preceding the acquisition of a large core employer, to try to understand those needs 20 years down the road, is that possible to do? I mean, how would you recommend we look at some of these guidelines that we're being given here today?
Well, you know, I don't mean to be flippant, but as a land developer, and I'm not developing anything now, haven't for 4 years probably, but you know that it's not going to be perfect right out of the gate, and you're going to have to make adjustments. And the process allows for those adjustments. So you do it. And at the simplest level, if you develop a commercial lot in an urban environment and you decide it's got to be permit ready or shovel ready, as Michelle Claymore says, you decide to put the curb cut here. Well, the guy who comes along to buy it or put his business there says, well, I want the curb cut over here. You got to be a grown-up about it and change it. Or the city says, well, you know, we changed the rule and now we don't allow double-wide curb cuts. We want you to have 2 curb cuts, one smaller, both smaller, one in, one out. So when you're planning something that's this durable, it's got to be flexible and changed with the times. And someone made the point earlier, I think it was Steve Glick from the City of Golden, that technologies have changed and laboratory needs have changed. Yes, there are things out there in our future that we can't even imagine today. I have an iPad, and it is astounding. 5 years ago, I couldn't even have imagined doing what can be done with that, and we're going to see that happen in our lifetimes with our environment at large, and the public process allows for flexibility and change. And that's why we're here. So, no, I don't think it's premature. This is setting the foundation for the long-term future. Every time somebody comes in for a building permit, they have to get a site plan approval. Is that correct? The site plan approval process allows for consideration of current events. I mean, is there a water quality issue on storm drainage or what? You see what I mean?
Commissioner Warren? Go ahead.
Yeah. Just an observation, Mr. Chairman. The mining industry for the last 25 years has encouraged the members of the industry to do this.
Just speak into the mic.
I thought I was speaking into it. Okay. Sorry. Has encouraged the members of the industry to do this kind of planning in advance, and essentially some of the terms that have been used are mine to closure and make the land ready for its next use. And starting this process early allows them to have a master plan that they can work to. And I commend the Keller family for starting this process as early as they have. But I think, yes, you can plan these things out in a general sort of way, not the specifics of every last detail, but it gives them an opportunity to work their current mining industry in a way that accommodates what their master plan is into the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else in the audience who wants to testify? No. Well, we'll answer the questions that you brought up, but your time is done. Sorry. Yeah. No, sir. That's it. Okay. No, that's it. We just can't have people from the audience asking questions now. Anybody else? Anyone else? Okay, public testimony is closed then. At this time, we're going to take a 10-minute break and come back, and the process will be for staff to answer some questions and concerns that were brought up in public testimony. Then we'll have the applicant have a chance to address concerns, and then we'll have a mix and match, and then we'll have a lot of discussions. Okay. 10 minutes, please. Are you ready? Okay. Could we come back to order, please? Oh. Oh. Y'all, please take your seats. We'll get started. So when we left off, staff, Jeannie, will, it's her turn to answer questions and answer comments. And also, Jeannie, you have access to your GIS system online right now?
I have access to the Pandora system.
Pandora.
So, yeah, if you want to
so we can do
zoning
overlays and
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
just
layers
not our
on layers
just not
and
our
so-
more fancy GIS system, but our mapping system.
Okay.
Yes, our general one.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
I just had a couple things. One regarding the question about if the property was properly posted, and the applicant was required to only post 6 signs, and the locations were identified by staff, and the applicant did submit their affidavit saying those signs had been posted and have been posted for the required 14 days. They also submitted photos, so staff believes the property has been properly posted. The Tuthill property is kind of in the middle of the ODP boundary, so the sign was out by the right-of-way and not, on their property internal because they don't abut any right-of-way. So I don't know if there was some confusion there, but it has been properly posted. As for the question about water, proof of water at the time of rezoning, all planning and zoning requires is a letter from the district stating that they will provide water. It's at the time of platting and site development plan and building permit time that the actual plans and how that water is going to get there is worked out between the developer and the water district. So at this point in time, the letter from them saying that, yes, we will provide water is adequate proof of water at the time of rezoning.
Jenny, I heard that the other way around. I thought it was a water supply or water rights question.
Because the person that stated that said, I believe that the district was requiring that the applicant provided sufficient water back into their system or whatever. We don't look at the water rights portion of that with the rezoning. All we require is that letter from the district saying that they supply water, or they will provide water, and that we do have a letter stating that.
And sanitation.
And sanitation.
Yeah, so that's the return flow, or part of it
Yes,
anyway.
that's correct. Other than that, I didn't feel there were really too many other questions that I could answer. If you think I missed something, please let me know.
Well, we might come back to you.
Okay.
Applicant, you have several questions that were asked of you. If you could address those, please.
Absolutely. There was numerous questions about, is this application premature at this time? And then there was also a lot of response back as to why this is a good time to do it now. And we don't believe that we could do a better job ourselves than what the people who stood up here and said. The traffic study that we proposed or prepared for the county actually has 2 phases, at a 25% build-out and then at a full build-out. That full build-out starts on page 21, and we have followed all of the requirements of the Jefferson County Transportation Guidelines at this time.
Page 21 of the...
Our traffic...
your traffic report.
Mm-hmm. Which is public record, and county staff has it and has reviewed it.
Okay.
And we are working on bringing our water to the North Table Mountain Water and Sanitation District at this time. And we will need that finalized before we can come in and plat.
Okay. Elaborate on you will have to finalize. What do you need to do?
We just need to go through their process and actually get incorporated into the district. We are in negotiations with them at this time.
Okay, but they, like Jeannie said, they have a letter. You have a letter stating
We have a
that
letter.
when all that clears, they will provide the water to you.
Yes, that they will provide water and sanitation services to us.
Does that need to be a condition?
No, that does not need to be a condition of rezoning.
Okay. Go ahead.
We believe those were the questions that were asked through the testimony.
Okay, we'll open it up to the commission to ask questions, and do staff or the applicant or any other expert witness. Commissioner Olson and then Commissioner Harris.
Yes, this would be for staff. I think there was a question regarding the height limits, and one was 46 feet. I think the heights limit in most of the use areas are between 35 and 46 feet. If you could explain that a little bit, and maybe if the applicant also wanted to explain why they wanted to be between 35 to 46 feet. And then I've got a question on that myself under use area 1. maybe it's there, but I don't see that use area 1 has a height limit specified in it. And that's the version that is proposed by the applicant.
You want me to go ahead? In use area 1, I do see it on page 2, building height, no building shall exceed 46 feet in height. And then, hold on, my computer logged out. Yeah, it's at the top.
Are you done?
No, it was just to give some rationale for the 35 to 46 feet.
The 35 feet is what's currently allowed in the A2 zone district, so 35 feet is typical for residential developments, and I couldn't remember commercial, so I was looking that up for you really quick here.
So your rationale was to base it on what would be currently allowed, as well as...
I don't know if that's what the applicant's rationale was, but building height and neighborhood level commercial is 46 feet.
Okay.
So staff was okay, did support those heights just because they were within the height limits that are already established in our zone district. So for C1, it ranges from, we have the convenience level, the neighborhood level, the community level, and the regional level. This type of development could easily qualify as a regional level, which would allow 80-foot high an 80-foot high height limit, or even the community level, which is the next step down, would allow 60 feet. So 46 feet, a 46-foot height limitation for what they're proposing, staff felt was compatible and was appropriate.
So we're a bit lower than what current code would allow. So does the applicant have any responses or any comments further than that?
That's exactly where we got the 46 feet, was from the existing Jefferson County zoning resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes, I have some questions related to, I guess, open space and trails. I don't know if it goes directly to Jeannie or if there's someone from open space that would maybe answer the question. First off, what would be considered the public open space dedication requirements for this type of a project? What would open space require with this type of a project? So is there going to be a land dedication requirement for open space?
There will be, but not with the rezoning. That would come at the time of platting, I believe. Okay.
So I guess the question is, where will that be in the future? Just wondering, is it the trail corridors? Is it based on number of dwelling units? How is that going to...
I'd defer that question to Mike Schuster. I don't know because I don't process the plats. So.
Okay.
Mike Schuster, Supervisor, Planning and Engineering. It'll happen at the time of platting. What'll probably happen in this development is they'll do what would be considered kind of a super lot plat, where they'll come in and divide up all the use areas first. At that time, the open space will probably be divided and will be meeting part of their open area requirement, not necessarily public open space, but part of their open area requirement. Then at the time of platting their business parks or their residential, then there will be additional open area that would be platted at that time. If those areas had park amenities, then they would get park dedication type credits towards their residential requirements. I don't know if that explains it, what your question was. But
it does.
Okay.
And then I guess this question goes to the applicant. My understanding is that you do not agree with the staff recommendation, and you're requesting the project to be approved as submitted, but with these additional conditions. Is that how I understand your position?
Yes, that's what we agreed to.
Okay. So I guess the question is for open space or Jeannie, how we haven't heard a response from the county about what has come back from the applicant in regards to the trails and the natural corridors.
Jeannie Schaefer, Planning and Zoning. We have been in talks with the applicant, and the staff open space or Planning and Zoning and Open Space, I should say, so all of staff has seen these 3 notes and does not support that language. So the language that's in your red mark print from staff, that's the language that staff would like to see. So staff is aware of the notes proposed by the applicant. We've reviewed them and still support the ones that are in our plan, in staff's red mark print.
Okay, so you saw these before tonight?
Yes, we definitely
Okay.
saw these, I believe, a week to 2 weeks ago. Yes, and have had a couple meetings and reviewed them. So.
Okay. And I think I have one more question.
Oh, just a second. Could you contrast the 2 proposals just briefly
Sure.
and tell us what the differences are?
All right. The primary differences, I think, for number 1, the trail along Highway 93, the applicant is requesting that it be provided within the right-of-way for 93. And staff is concerned about that. I think I have these backwards in here. Hold on.
Jeannie, excuse me. Can I just make a comment? Jeannie, the ones that, if you're looking at the ones that are dated today, those are a little bit different from the prior ones that we've talked about, in the sense that the prior ones were not public. So I just want to make you aware of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, okay. Either way, I'll kind of contrast. Was that the only change then? Was the public?
Actually, and the realignment of as the
To be along
public trail
56.
comes in at 58th, it winds around, and I'm going to try to use this mouse. This is the most jumpy mouse I've ever seen before, so it's not me.
You just found your Preble mouse.
I guess. Sorry, but it goes away instantly, so it really acts like a mouse more than any mouse I've ever used. So it comes in off of. So in other words, let me start over. The public trail would be from West 64th south down to West 58th, and then it's going to go onto the property through Use Area 3 in a southerly and westerly direction to the west side of Use Area 3, and then on to the West 56th Avenue, and it would go west through the rest of the property, or through the end of the property. That maintains the natural features and the protects the Van Bibber area, so that we're not bringing public people riding bicycles, mountain bikes, etc., right through that area. It keeps them along the right-of-way of Highway 93 and then onto our property in a way that we think, still allows them to move, but does not take all that right through that very special riparian area of the Van Bibber.
And that's on the west side of 93.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jeannie?
Continue? Okay.
Continue.
All right, so the first one is the public trail linkage along Highway 93. Staff's concern with that comment, originally the ones that staff did review said private trail linkages, that we did not support private, so the applicant has changed that to public, which we do support, but we still do not support this note as it's written because it indicates that the trail would be in the right-of-way for Highway 93. Staff wanted that to be more flexible, to allow it to be in any location, so to be determined at the time of plat. So either within the right-of-way or just outside of the right-of-way or through the open area. So the note that staff has written is a little bit more flexible and not as specific as to where that trail linkage should go.
But within a reasonable distance to 93.
Yes, within a reasonable distance. And if it's, even if the way this is written, I think if it's not needed at the time of plat, this note is flexible enough for that to be negotiated the way that staff has written it. So it's something we want, but it's flexible enough to figure out where the best place for it should be. And staff doesn't necessarily believe that the right-of-way is the best location.
Okay.
Okay. And then the second one, the public trail linkage east-west across the property. Staff's So the difference there is also the width. Staff has put in a 10-foot wide public multi-use trail, and the applicant has 8 to 11 feet. Staff's note would require that the trail follow Van Bibber until the use area 8 instead of use area 3. So it would cut across use area 4 along Van Bibber, so kind of in the middle, and then it would go south, yes, down use area 8, and then connect with 56th, and then go over to the west.
Okay.
And that is an alignment that staff was in support of. The note also says that that configuration or other location mutually agreed upon at the time of future development. So does allow, again, more flexibility in the future. The width will also be determined, the width of the trail easement would also be determined at the time. So staff feels that our notes are specific in what we would like to see, but they also offer flexibility at the time of platting or future development for another scenario to be reviewed if that's a better scenario. And then the natural corridor. The difference there is that the applicant is stating the buffer area should be the floodplain of the Van Bibber floodplain. Staffs received comments from Colorado Parks and Wildlife that suggest a larger buffer would be more appropriate. Staff has written our corridor alignment so it's broader, so it's more flexible, because in some places just the floodplain might not be enough buffer, and in some places it might be enough, and some places it might not be enough. So the way staff feels that our note is written is that it's more flexible and can better accommodate that buffer and future comments in the future from Parks and Wildlife, from open space, those kinds of things. And
the floodplain is defined by the FEMA outline? Yes, the floodplain is defined by FEMA, and on your ODP document, the 11 by 17, it's also indicated on that official plan. So if you decided to go with the applicant's note, the buffer would be, the floodplain at the time of the ODP, which is the floodplain indicated on here. So if the stream was very near the edge of the floodplain, then you want the flexibility to be able to move outside to a reasonable distance to accommodate for that. That's correct. Yeah. But wherever possible, keep it in the floodplain. Is that language? It doesn't say wherever possible. It just says that there shall be a buffer, and the location and width of the corridor trail shall be based upon further review. Okay, so we can talk about that later. Yeah, it's not that we're against it being the floodplain. It's just it should be more flexible, because I don't think there's not really enough information at this time to determine exactly where that should be, and that's appropriate for the time of the platting. So. Okay, continue, Mr. Harris.
Thank you. There's been a lot of numbers that have been conveyed by the applicant and even the people in support of the application, with number of jobs, number of square footage for a commercial industrial development, let's say, or job generating uses. Does anybody have an answer as to, with the staff recommendation, how much more density that proposes and compared to what's being proposed? Is it double the amount? Is it just to get a sense of scale? Staff did not do that computation of what the density would be, or how many million square feet it would be for our recommendation to be increased over. So no, we don't have that. Did the applicant evaluate that?
Yes, we did evaluate that. And let me go through here and point it out. Trying to think of, I did it more on a residential basis. Let me go back here. So if we took use area 8, which we currently have for 2 houses, 35-acre plus lot sizes, and we did it similar use to use area 4, that would be an addition of approximately 4 million square feet of acreage, or of area, which could allow for an additional 1.3 to 2.1 million square feet just in use area 8 alone. If we went the other way, away from residential, and did it more industrial. Use area 9 would be an additional 3,757,000 square feet, which could allow for basically 1.12 million to 1.87 million square feet. And these are raw numbers. This is based on 30 to 50% of the total area, because we know that open space, parking, drainage will need to be taken out. So that's where I came up with these numbers, based on what staff is proposing. Use Area 10 currently allows for 20 homes, and if we increase to staff's proposal, it would be upwards of 86 homes. Oh, no, excuse me, that was Use Area 9. And Use Area 10 allows for 20 homes, and if you did one home per acre, it's 217 acres up there. So we could go up to 217 homes. That's absolute max, and that's no room for roads, but that's just translating there.
A general comment with regard from us with respect to the staff's recommendation regarding the increase in density. I'm just referring to the increase in density. We can work with that increase in density because it's not requiring that we only do that increase in density. We appreciate the staff's opinion, and also the way that it's written is that we can do the development exactly as we've proposed it, or we could increase the density. So, you know, our thoughts about the property, I think you've heard this evening, and certainly the Keller family's stewardship of this property really has been or served as the basis for our densities. We know that those densities are not the highest densities that could be put to use on this property. We're very aware of that. And we were, you know, because we really want to keep the topographical features. You know, we want to nestle the business park around the site, around the features, geologic features that currently exist on the site. We want to have the family equestrian center. I think one gentleman asked, well, if you only build 2 houses, that's in this use area 8, right here, before the mouse disappears on me. What happens to the rest of the acres? Well, it's merely 2 houses on those acres together with a barn. So there's nothing else out there other than the cows and the horses that are really, really important to the Keller family. So
I think he meant that, is that just 2 lots, or is it going to be 20 acres of open space? I think that's what he was
Well,
getting
the cows and the horses, though, they have to have a lot of area to roam around and...
I mean, open space for public.
Oh, for the public, yeah. No, it...
Open area, I should say.
Right. It would have to be fenced so that, you know, the cows... They'll still have cows and horses.
You're saying just 2 lots.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So, thank you.
I have a question about Phase 1 and Phase 2. Does Phase 1 just include the completion of the mining operation, or does that include some development, say, in the south end or something like that?
Phase 1 basically includes all of the uses that are currently being made of the property. So there's the mining, the asphalt plant, there are a few residences, there's the barns, there's the cattle, and the horses. So basically, you can think of Phase 1 as a snapshot of what's happening out there today. Okay? And then Phase 2 for each of these areas varies a little bit. For example, use area 11, which is where we're mining, up in here. Phase 1 there is mining.
Right.
And then Phase 2 becomes water storage.
Okay, so you could start moving dirt fairly soon then for part of the development outside of the mining area.
I would say if we are going to start moving anything up here in the area where the barn and the horses are, since we know that we want to put them over here in use area 8, so in other words, the part of these two use areas, that might be something that we would do, is merely move the horses in the barn and the family residence that currently exists there over here to this use area 8. But since our number one priority is to continue mining and making asphalt, then we really wouldn't be impacting the rest of the property until the minerals are exhausted.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Oh, go ahead. Commissioner Ferguson.
Jeannie, do you have an overlay map where we can look at the topography of the area and then place the use areas over the top?
I don't have a map that can place the use areas over the top. I don't know if, did you guys have one in your presentation? But I do have like an aerial I can pull up that can show topography lines, but not with the use areas. I can't zoom in either, so.
There. All righty.
There it is.
Right. Yeah,
Our site analysis shows the topography. Slopes in excess of 30% are the reddish color on that map. And then the bubbles are the use areas. Unfortunately, this one does not show them numbered, but I can number them if you want or have questions.
No, that's okay. I have the map here.
Could you expand that a little bit?
I can't, because it's a computer, I can't
okay.
zoom in unless they can.
I can if you give me a few minutes.
And while you're doing that, just clarification on use area 8. Is this intended to be the private residences for the Kellers?
Just to be out of our way, I can talk up here. Okay. Use area 8 is that in the corner of the property, in the southwest corner of the property. And you might not be able to see it on there, but we have 2 residences and 1 barn. And so that would be where the current barn would be moved, or a new barn built. And then the residences, 2 residences there, whether that would be 1 family member and 1 caretaker, or 2 family members, something like that.
And so according to the staff report, that's one of the areas that staff is recommending added language as far as incorporating the possibility of making it commercial, office, and so forth.
Correct.
So that's why I would really appreciate clarification as to your intention with Area 8, because ultimately if that is supposed to be private, then let's call it that.
Right. On our use area map, that's use area 8, and it's described as a family equestrian. And that's what the intent is of our application. What staff has done is combined use area 8, the one directly north of it, use area 9, use area 10,
correct,
all together into that business and technology center. But that is not what we have in mind for use area 8.
All right. Thank you for
Okay.
clarifying.
Welcome.
And thank you for the overlay on this map. I appreciate that. It helps understand the residential areas versus the office, commercial, and so forth. Right now, that's all the questions I have. Thanks.
Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you, Chairman Anna. I'm still a little at odds with the trail access issues, and I hate to bring another item into play, but when I look at Open Spaces recommendations, they talk about the importance of a connection from Highway 93 to White Ranch, whether that be, a pedestrian or a bicycle trail. And I know staff and applicant have different perspectives of where those paths should go. I'd be curious to know, and if it were appropriate for someone from Open Spaces to offer some commentary tonight, perhaps, to that extent, if they were comfortable. I think they have a dog in this fight.
Tom Hobie, Director of Open Space with Jefferson County. Good evening, Commissioners. We have a vision that's a long-term vision that's outlined in our master plan that we've taken some action on as long ago as 1995 in terms of doing a go-forth and pursuing certain interests relative to this property. That vision includes a connection from Van Bibber Park to the east along the Van Bibber Trail corridor, connecting a trail to North Table Mountain, ultimately crossing 93 and connecting to White Ranch Park. That vision includes protecting Van Bibber Creek as well as having a trail along Van Bibber Creek. So if I could back up a little bit to just give you a little bit of context here. We are the closest public foothills and mountain experience to the largest population center in the state. If you look at, and many of the commission members will recall the meeting we had back in January when I showed you some mapping that showed national forests along the Front Range and their proximity to the major population centers in the Front Range. And it showed Jefferson County having a lot of the Pike National Forest, but not very proximate to the population. That's the popularity. That's why Jefferson County Open Space and Denver Mountain Parks are so popular and so important, because they are the public lands that the Denver metro area really enjoys. We have a tremendous amount of use throughout our 210-mile, 28-park system, and we have to have more connections, more trails as our population grows, as people start to recreate closer to home. So those are some kind of key tenets in our master plan. So our particular interests in this property are helping create that vision for that Van Bibber to White Ranch connection, North Table Mountain along the way. And at the same time, we met with the applicant and we talked to them about the strong family interest in Area 8. During that meeting, we talked about the possibility, the compromise perhaps, of traveling along Van Bibber Creek to Area 8, heading southward for that small section, and then going along 58 to make the connections that we already have up to White Ranch, west of 93. So we believe that the particular language that planning staff has incorporated into their recommendation is appropriate and would allow us the flexibility to work through that in the next couple of phases of approvals. I want to speak a little bit to we also have identified in our master plan trails that would travel north and south along 93. And as Jeannie mentioned earlier, those could be in the right-of-way. They might need to be outside of the right-of-way for reasons that we don't know now. And that's why we have proposed the language that we're proposing, so as to allow the trail to occur whether CDOT approves it or not. So that's some of our rationale there. And then I think Jeannie's done a great job of explaining the language relative to preservation along Van Bibber Creek. So I'd be happy to answer any questions as a follow-up to that.
I do have a specific question. Could someone graphically show how you're going to get from 93 to 56th Street? Are you going to go along Van Bibber through Area 4? Or are you going to skirt below 4 onto 56? Do you understand my question? I think perhaps staff is suggesting and open space is suggesting to utilize a portion of the creek, and applicant is proposing not to.
That's correct.
Oh, and staff is supporting to use a portion of Van Bibber.
Yes.
Traverse.
Yes, and that is our initial position was we wanted the trail to go through Van Bibber entirely, so as to create a quality public outdoor recreation experience. And again, in the spirit of compromise, to recognize the family's interest in having the family equestrian use in Area 8, we're certainly willing to have that go through a portion, travel southward. It is a relatively small distance through that area.
More specifically, were you proposing that the trail would go through that stand of trees that's really attractive there along the creek and then head south?
Well, it would go adjacent to those, not through them.
Adjacent to, and then head south to avoid Area 8.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Price was up first. Do you have questions, Jamie? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So I've got, thank you. I've got a couple questions for staff and a couple for the applicant. Am I free to fire away? We're done with open space? Okay.
Always come back to it.
So I guess when we were talking about the trails just a minute ago, ML, can you, I guess in your own words, explain why you're struggling with the staff's view on the trails and why you've proposed this alternative language? I got to tell you, I kind of see what our staff's saying and the benefits of the improvements of those trails, and are you just trying to stick the trail in the right of way just so we can have a little more land and we're not so concerned about the experience of the trail, or what's going on?
A couple of things. Good questions. We really want, while we understand and appreciate desire to have trails along, let's just talk for the moment, along 93, okay? That, and there already are extensive trails on the east side of 93 that go to Arvada Reservoir, around there, along Lake, quite a few, okay? But we appreciate people ride up and down 93. So what we're suggesting is that we provide trails in that right-of-way. I mean, most of the people that ride 93 really are more or less commuting, or they're serious riders along 93. They're not the family out for the Sunday afternoon ride with one of the parents with the trailer with the infant behind there. It's mostly people that are, ride Lookout Mountain a couple times a week and that kind of thing. So that is why that would go from 64th Avenue, where there is a traffic light, then between 64th and 58th, traffic lights. On the property itself, our goal with this property, as many people picked up in the public comments, was to create a property where you could really live, work, and just be on this property. And we thought one of the amenities of this property would be for those people to have trails and to know that they could literally walk, and I'm going to try to make this mouse do what I want it to do. Literally, the grandparents could live up here in an assisted living. The parents could live here of the children, And the parents might work in here or over here. So the grandparents might be able to walk and see their grandchildren. They might take walks with their grandchildren. It's a leisurely type movement on the property. And it's an amenity for the people who would be on the property. So that was our original thought of let's make connections, but let's offer that as a really special item for the people that would live and work here. We have moved a bit away from that initial position and said, well, in order to move the people from the east side of 93 in a westerly direction, then at this intersection 58, bring them onto the property and then go right between these two use areas onto West 56th Avenue, where they can continue to White Ranch, which is off our map. We, in our proposal, are protecting the Van Bibber area, and I want to back up a minute about Van Bibber as a creek. Van Bibber in this area is not like Coal Creek or Clear Creek, where you walk along there and there's the big runoff and such. You know, there's always water in the creek. In fact, I don't even think they should really be called a creek anymore. It almost needs to just be called Van Bibber area. So it's not like there's a big water feature here. At one time, there was more of a water feature here, but when the development occurred in here and wells were dug to service that, then there's much less water running here. So that's why we thought, okay, we will then put a public trail, but then take it off here onto 56 to go onto White Ranch. We would keep this area in here between the Family Equestrian Center and also the Technology Business Park area, protected so that we're not going to build in there.
I think I'm okay in that area. It was long 93.
Long 93.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was struggling with that. I think you
okay
answered that question. I'm not sure I'm happy, but I think you answered my question on that.
Okay.
Let me go back to Jeannie, if I could, Mr. Chairman. We talked a little bit at the beginning, Jeannie, about jobs, and I scribbled down some numbers here. I think I got them right. That right now the applicant's talking about over 5 million square feet of business office and 2.7 million of commercial on the site, and we're 9,400 jobs. And we're saying that we want to try to get a little bit more out of the project. We're interested in I think areas 8, 9, and 10, and maybe getting a little more out of it. Is that kind of what we're saying? Because I think what I'm reading is that this land use map, as we start heading west towards the foothills, the densities are going down again, and that kind of makes some sense to me. That right, less density as we head east, more density along the highway. And you're saying as staff, well, we'd like to reserve the opportunity to get some more density in there.
That is correct. With the North Plains Plan, this is designated as an activity center. So the intent is for if there's opportunity for those high-intensity uses to locate here, that's where they should go. So I think staff's recommendation is more so that this is where the North Plains Plan has identified that that's where that type of activity should go. So our concern is by allowing some of this area to develop as lower density residential, that may force other areas in the surrounding area to want to develop as higher density as well, that maybe might not be activity centers that might be recommended for other uses. So from staff's position, the plan recommends for higher intensity. So the thought is it could be allowed and be flexible in the rezoning. So why not? It would be in keeping with the activity center and the intent of high density, high-intensity uses.
Okay, so the idea of scaling this down the way they've proposed, staff thinks that's a good idea, but not an important enough idea to lose the opportunity for more employment more base jobs.
Correct. Staff didn't feel that this was not in conformance, but felt that there was more opportunity to increase the density. So it's not that we're not in support, it's just that there's more opportunity and there's no reason that the rezoning can't accommodate that and provide that opportunity in the future.
Okay. A couple more questions, Mr. Chairman. Maybe back to the applicant. We were talking about this trail along the creek, and it's a nice area in there. And then I think you said in your presentation, CDOT's going to require 58th to be realigned to make a four-legged intersection with a signal at 58th. And it looks like on some of the maps I'm looking at, these aren't perfect, but it looks like that's going right through that same drainage area. The road would end up going right through the middle of that. Am I reading that right? And any thoughts on how you're going to mitigate that?
You are correct that it is right now the floodplain backs up because there's a culvert right there. There is development proposed on the east side as well, and improvements to that culvert are going to need to be made when the road gets widened. So yes, we'll have to take into account the floodplain at the time of platting and the time of construction and make improvements to that intersection on both sides of the road.
Yeah, so I get that. And so, and now you said, it's kind of an area that isn't maybe as pristine and wonderful an experience. I mean, it looks like you're going to have to cut down trees, fill it, build a road on top of it with a culvert, and it's just going to be a loss of that piece of Van Pepper in terms of that experience.
Well, that is not something that will occur in the near future, okay? But when we get to that point, we are going to have to make some changes in there. At that point, I don't know how many trees will be surviving because, they're cottonwoods, and if the water keeps decreasing as it has been, then, there might not even be trees in there by that time. But we'll certainly have to mitigate the conditions as they exist at the time that we start the development. You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it sounds like some thought maybe needs to go into that. Probably on this meeting tonight, but we're hearing that that's a nice corridor, and we're planning trails, and we're also hearing that we're punching roads through because of CDOT. Maybe there's some discussion, negotiation could happen about that roadway alignment. You don't have to respond to that.
Okay.
We did have a question, by the way, ML, about water. You guys are planning on bringing water. You have to bring water rights to the district in order to
correct
have the district serve you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then I wasn't sure about, somebody mentioned sound walls, but I don't think you're proposing sound walls. I just wanted to clarify that. Either Jeannie or the applicant could clarify what we're doing with sound walls.
In our first round of what we presented originally did have sound walls in there. We have since removed them. They're no longer in our written restrictions. They're not allowed.
Just to humor me, why were we doing sound walls originally?
We put it in there in case of CDOT and future development in case they wanted it, but when we heard the outcry of people and the visual corridor, we removed it quickly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So there are also no fences along 93 as well?
We have said that there's no perimeter fencing allowed in use areas 1, 2, 3, or 5. However, we have allowed for security fencing or fencing around mechanics, around buildings.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
but not perimeter fencing.
Sure. Okay, good. Questions? Commissioner Olson? Commissioner Rogers?
A couple of comments to staff in their red line additions to the ODP. And these may be more appropriate for platting or site development, but from my experience, your perspective as to limiting the capability for outside storage, screened or not screened, may be inconsistent with current and future potential uses as they might relate to environmental sciences, solar sciences, anything up to and including testing rockets, that you're going to find those uses will require greater portions of outside storage. Should be screened, should be adequately screened, and oftentimes screened greater than 6 feet. I think we may be stuck with some old perspectives in terms of outside storage, and I'm not in favor of any visible outside uses, but I think that a lot of the environmental uses that end up being used in the environment, whether it be someone like community power with bioregeneration devices or solar devices, I think we need to look a little differently at that to give the user that flexibility down the road. I think another comment would be that we've asked not to provide for hazardous uses. You've got language that would preclude hazardous uses. I think that hazardous uses, we need to control how they impact the environment, but not the particular uses. Anything from painting a beer can to testing a rocket engine could be considered a hazardous use. I don't think we should preclude those from this development, but we should definitely protect the environment and the neighbors from the impact of those uses. So maybe we measure the impact, but on a small pilot basis, we might be able to expand the opportunity for the developer to provide for those uses.
The one response I do have to that is many of the use areas have as their last allowed uses, it says other uses substantially similar in nature, compatible with, and having substantially similar impacts to those listed above. There's flexibility there for the zoning administrator in the future to make that determination that maybe a use like that could be compatible, could be allowed without needing to potentially rezone the property. So I think the intent was to allow some flexibility for things in the future like that.
Commissioner Rogers, if I may.
Go ahead.
On page 21 of I guess I'm looking at staff's comments, but it's in here just regardless. General requirements in all use areas, item number 4, it says the zoning administrator and his or her appointed designee may permit certain administrative exceptions to the requirements for lot standards, setbacks, building heights, and fencing requirement. We tried to take that into consideration.
Okay. Commissioner Olson?
Yes, Jeannie, did staff talk with the applicant about the concept of enlarging use area 4 to include the south side of use area 8, that would be south of Van Bibber? It seemed like that's a kind of contiguous parcel, and was there any thought to that, where we could get a little more density with the technological
I know
uses?
First, in our discussions with staff, we discussed, recommending that part of those use areas be considered or all, and we ultimately landed on just recommending everything in use area 4 for all of use area 8 and use area 9. So no, we did not have that direct discussion with the applicant about just a certain portion because our recommendation was all. That's what staff decided was appropriate.
And is there would there be any interest in looking at increasing area 4 to cover the south side? That way the trail could pass along there too.
I think staff is supportive of covering all. So, I mean, if the Planning Commission would like to make that recommendation, they can. But I would, in order to get a new staff opinion on if we would support just that one piece without the rest, I would have to take that back to staff.
Mm-hmm. Looks like Mr. Schuster has a comment.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, I think you're actually saying remove the residential uses in that area and make it completely follow use area 4.
Use area 4.
That is, like Jeannie explained, that is beyond what we were intending to do. We were just intending in our revisions or suggestions to allow those areas to have those uses that are in use area 4, but not remove the potential for the residential uses.
Okay.
So I think what we've done allows that to happen there, but it doesn't go as far as what you're asking for, which would be mandating it that it happen there.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have another question. I can't let our transportation consultants sit there without anything to do. As I'm looking at these internal road patterns here, I'm having trouble understanding how things flow through there and how you would work things in phases and so forth. Can you comment on these road alignments and how they came about? It seems a little confusing to me. If you might help me understand it better.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you. My name is Mike Rocha. I have been sworn with SM Rocha LLC. We are at Transportation and Traffic Engineers. We're located at 12303 Airport Way, Suite 200, Broomfield, 80021. To answer your question, what you see on the map is illustrative at best. We won't know what the true roadway alignments will be until you get into platting and actual site plan development. And then at that point in time, we'll be using the county's roadway design standards for determination of roadway classifications, connections, and proper use of internal roads.
How do you feel about the connection, the realignment at 58th Street? As I am understanding it, that's a CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation requirement, not the applicant requiring that.
At this point in time, the concept to realign 56 to 58 is just that. It's a concept. It's a vision that generally is kind of associated with overall master planning, as kind of illustrated through Jefferson County's transportation plan as well as CDOT's vision. So to answer your question about opinion, traffic opinion, it works. To what degree the configuration is going to be like, we won't know until we actually get into actual site planning and detailed construction and design conversations with the county and the state.
So the interior road network could change a lot. As I'm seeing, it's a little hard for me to envision a lot of people turning at 58th to go into the project and then wind their way around to get up to the residential in Area 9. As I'm understanding it, you'll be able to go in there and totally change this if you have to.
Right. I think, though, that the general alignment that you see, how 58th, if expanded west of 93, because of natural site constraints, will have some curvature closer towards 93 and curve to the south.
Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Oh, is there any other questions for traffic? Go ahead. Oh, any other traffic questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry. He was over there waving, and I ignored him. Mr. Schuster, please.
You thought I was just saying hi.
Yeah.
I actually want to point out that the graphic that you see that shows all the road connections is not the ODP graphic. The ODP graphic, which is page 103 out of 104 in your packet, is what's up there now, and it doesn't show any road connections. Also, just to point out, there's nothing in the ODP that says that 56th Avenue is going to be realigned for sure to connect into 58th. We're just basically saying at the time of development that appropriate connections to Highway 93 will have to be made, that there's going to probably be some unusual things that happen when the highway gets constructed and when this property gets constructed, and they're going to have to deal with that as they develop the property. So it leaves it pretty much flexible for whatever the state highway system wants, whatever Jefferson County wants as we go forward.
Commissioner Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could somebody comment a little bit about the fence height, 6-foot fence and how it relates to allowing wild game movements in the area. I understand around the industrial area and the mine, clearly that's mandatory to keep animals out of the work area, but in the rest of the property, 6-foot fence seems to be an impediment toward game movement.
So the 6-foot fence for along the highway would be just for security purposes, because we do allow for schools, nursing homes, some things that we need to have, make sure there's safety built in. 6 feet is a standard residential height. And so for compatibility, that's where we came up with the 6 foot. As you move into the residential areas, we said a maximum of 6 feet, again, because that's a standard residential height. And we did not necessarily distinguish between wildlife fencing. We figured that would be more of a covenant issue for us to be dealt with at the time when we actually get into site development plan and building the residential.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Jeannie. Closing of the mine, is a long way off, but is there something to start the mitigation process of the mining activity? Does that need to be in some document, or is that state-controlled?
I believe the applicant could probably better answer that question. I know the ODP that currently exists on the property and all the mining permits, the rezoning, this rezoning does not change any of that. So
right.
That's all I'll say about it.
I'm just wondering about the mitigation process and how it starts.
In order to mine, one of the many permits that are required is one from a department of the state called the Division of Minerals and Geology, and it's the DRMS. So before you can mine, you must provide a plan. I'm kind of shortcutting this, but you provide a plan that includes how you're going to reclaim the property. And you also bond for that on an annual basis. So you submit a report, here's what we've done this year, here's where we are, and here's more money every year. So that is all in place. And since on this particular site, the mining area will be used for water storage, then basically, like many of the other areas or many of the other mines, we're basically ultimately creating a bucket to hold water, similar to what Aggregate Industries is doing near the Fort restaurant as water storage for Morrison.
And where are you getting the water for the storage?
That will be a very complex or very detailed agreement between many parties. Some of the water is water that we are fortunate enough to already have.
So are you going to need a permit?
In order
for
to
your pit, the water that's going to go into the pit, is that essentially, is that your storage area?
Well, right. Once we're finished mining, then mining is a temporary use, and what you do is extract the materials, and then once you're finished with that, the property goes on to another use. And in this case, where we're mining will become water storage.
So that's groundwater that's filling the pit, which requires a permit from the state.
Right. Ultimately, groundwater will be involved and other water as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
This is kind of a pointed question, I guess. I think we're struggling. We don't see a whole lot of flexibility. We see staff's proposal, and we see the applicant's submittal. This commission tonight, assuming there's a decision tonight, will make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And I see Tom leaning over here. You might ask him if you want to answer this question before you answer it. But if the Board of County Commissioners goes along with staff's recommendation, all the property owners who are subject to this PUD have to sign the document. Will all of them accept that type of a decision? This is different than the application that you submitted. So I guess I'm not seeing much flexibility to work these issues out. And so I'm wondering what the applicant's position would be if the Board of County Commissioners went entirely with staff's recommendations on this.
One important thing on that, Vince, is that even, let's say the board did that, we, the applicants, can still make our proposal come about. So it doesn't, it's not an either or.
I understand that.
It's
yeah.
in addition to. So yes, we'll make that work. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Jeannie has made that clear that it's that that's the way it's going to work. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we'll close the question and answer period and turn the deliberation over to the this commission, although commissioners still have the right to ask questions if we need clarification or something like that. So we can either have some discussion or someone can make a motion. Also, we need to think about if we kind of mix and match the applicant's proposal and the staff's proposal, how we're going to handle those potential changes. I assume, well, I shouldn't assume, but I guess the best way would be to look at each red mark print that the staff is proposing and make amendments to those. So we can go through staff's proposal and go through their recommended changes. If there's kind of consensus that we're going to leave or delete, well, let me rephrase that. Yeah, we can just make amendments. I don't know if we need to make amendments for every single piece, but for each red mark print line, we can have a consensus whether to leave it or dump it. And then for the more controversial ones, we can have an actual formal amendment. Is that?
My suggestion for you would
Sure.
be pick one proposal. You could make a motion to approve staff's red lines or the applicants with nothing. And, so pick one. I don't care which one. And you could remove stuff out of staff's, or you could add stuff into applicants. I don't know where you guys are at on which version you'd prefer to start from.
My recommendation would be to make a motion using staff's proposal, but I'm flexible with that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So a motion or discussion? Does everybody understand? Okay. Okay. We'll make a motion to approve or deny the application along with, well, we should have the staff report, if we would do that as an amendment also then, right? Or can we make that in the main motion? Make it in the main motion, okay. So the main motion will have a recommendation to approve or deny along with which ODP plan to use. Amend it as needed. Mr. Olson.
I move that in the case before us, that the Planning Commission recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners based on the staff findings and recommendations, and based on the testimony and based on the staff report. For case number 12, 12-101-515RZ.
Is there a second?
Can we just clarify which ODP?
Oh, yeah.
And that we use staff's recommended red line revisions dated May 23rd, 2012.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ferguson. Any discussion? Bonnie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Price?
I'm going to vote yes, and I'm just going to make a comment for the record. I think the applicant's approach to the west side of the property in terms of decreasing the density makes a lot of sense from a design and stewardship standpoint, but I also understand the concerns about there's so few opportunities left in unincorporated Jefferson County for economic development. These are becoming precious economic development opportunities, so I'm going to stay with staff recommendation, understanding that there's flexibility within those requirements to continue to implement the landowner's vision. But can't stress enough the concern that I have as a planning commissioner about the need for economic development. So I'm voting yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Harris?
Aye, and I agree with Commissioner Price's comments.
Commissioner Ferguson?
Aye, and I'd also like to comment that I think both the applicant and the staff have put together beautiful proposals and have made compromises along the way. And I really, really like the idea of incorporating the commercial industrial office along with residential in this beautiful area. Some people may disagree, but I think this particular parcel of land has the potential to be stellar. So thank you all.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
And Chairman Anna?
And Chairman votes aye as well, so that passes 7-0. Now, we need to go through staff's red mark print and see if we need...
He's making amendments. It's done.
Did he do that? Oh, I mean for amendments.
No amendments.
Okay, I was under a different impression.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you still need to make a motion on the urban growth boundary. Then,
All right. Yeah, that's been read into the record. Is there any comments or discussion? Yeah? Oh, I thought we did. Okay, could you please read that into the record?
This is the urban growth boundary adjustment. The case number is 12-108921CH. The case name is Keller Farm Official Development Plan. The owner applicant is Keller Farm Property LLC, Asphalt Paving Company, George M. and Darlene J. Hogan, John A. and Julia A. Tuttle, and James L. Keller. The location is 5899, 6569, 6609, 6709, and 6809 State Highway 93, 6550 Glencoe Valley Road, and 2413 West 56th Avenue, and 7 parcel IDs as noted on record. And this is located in the approximate area is 1,237 acres, and the purpose is to amend the urban growth boundary to include a portion of the Keller Farm property, which is proposed to be rezoned for urban uses. Case manager is Jeannie Schaefer.
Okay, so Jeannie, we'll go through the same process. Applicant through this, well, the applicant is Jefferson County. Or Who is the applicant then? Jefferson County or Keller Farms? Okay. So you have a chance to do another presentation if you want. And you can amend yours.
Okay. Well, I talked about the urban growth boundary and the criteria in my presentation for the rezoning. So I don't know if you want me to go over all that again. I don't know if that's necessary. But what I do want to add is that in light of your approval of the rezoning case, you would need to approve the 626 acres, not the 382 acres. Right. That would be the note I would make to you.
626. Anything else?
That's all I have. That just staff would recommend you approve that number.
Okay. Applicant, do you have any comments?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll open it up to public testimony. Does anyone from the public want to testify in this case? Seeing none, we'll close the public testimony and open it up for the commission deliberation or a motion.
Commissioner, I'm wondering if we need to make an amendment for the additional acreage, or if that can just be a comment to staff that gets adjusted before going to the board like we did on the first case.
Just part of the motion. Commissioner Rogers.
I'm going to ask you to repeat yourself to clarify that the additional acreage is not mandatory, that it's based upon the actual use at the final platting, that some of those acres may not be used and could fall back into the urban growth boundary.
Yes, that is correct. So use area is 8, 9, and I think it's 8, 9, 10, 7. Yes, if they're developed as residential and they're not considered urban, so if they're greater 1 acre or greater, they would not need to be included in the urban growth boundary. So whatever acreage is not used would go back into the bank and could be applied to another property.
Great,
the type plat.
So could we say up to 626?
That would be right, yeah.
Go ahead.
Jeannie, just for clarification, it states here the county currently has a total of 890.64 acres available. Do you want that included in here, in the urban growth boundary?
No, that 890 number, that is what is currently in the bank. So
Okay.
if you approve the 626, that would come out, and the county would be left with the difference to assign to another property. So I don't think that needs to be in there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that 12-108921CH, urban growth boundary adjustment, be recommended to the Board of County Commissioners for approval to amend the urban growth boundary to include a portion of the Keller Farm property, which is proposed to be rezoned for urban uses, and that the acreage amount to be 626 acres, based on the findings in the staff report.
I think we just approve it, not recommend approval, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Olson, second. Any discussion? Commissioner Harris?
Actually, I have one question. I'm going to go forward a few weeks. If the Board of County Commissioners approve something different than what we just recommended in terms of the density and on the ODP, we may need to revert that number back to the original, the applicant's, what essentially is the applicant's request at the 360 some units, correct?
That's
or
correct.
acres, I mean.
And
I'm not sure how.
The way the motion was just made, it was up to the 600 and whatever the number was. So you wouldn't have to come back and reallocate anything because we would only apply that urban growth to the areas that actually develop as urban in the future.
Okay. Okay.
And the other item in there is the approval of the UGB is subject, the change to the urban growth boundary is subject to the approval by the Board of County Commissioners as well. That's one of the conditions. So. Of the zoning, not the urban growth boundary. But it's subject to the zoning being approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
Commissioner Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We only have in Jefferson County a limited amount of acreage that we can add to this urban plan, if I understand the last several weeks of discussion. And the applicants only asked for 382, and we're suggesting that we ought to make that 600 and something. Shouldn't we conserve some of that rather than spend it all in one place, so to speak?
There will be acreage left over in the bank, but again, the 626, if the applicant does not develop certain portions of the property as urban development, that goes back into that bank. So staff was, because of that, staff supported the 626 being allocated because there is acreage left in the bank to be allocated to other properties, and anything left over that's not urban would go back into that bank.
Yeah, but how long is that going to take? I mean, if we make this commitment to 600, whatever the number is, and right now, then we can't use that anymore, and it would seem to me that somehow or another that ought to come to some sort of a resolution here in short order rather than take X number of months or years to sort that out.
True. The 626 acres, you did just approve the rezoning with all the uses that require that 626 acres. So if that's not approved, the two don't coincide then. So they don't match. You need, if you approve that one, you need to approve the 626. No. The up to 626.
Now I'm really confused.
Go ahead.
I understand Commissioner Warner's question, and it's a good one. If there was a way that we could magically not use those extra acres that we know they probably will not get used. They probably will not take those other areas and develop them commercially in the next 20 years. Is there a way that we can word that says that it's 300 and XYZ acres, but with the ability to go to 6 so that you're not tying up all that urban growth boundary acreage for some other development, as Commissioner Warren has asked the question, or are we just in the weeds?
Well, I guess the question is, when is that acreage taken out of the bank?
I think it's immediately.
The acreage is set aside as you make, as of today, if the Board of County Commissioners approves the zoning application. So that 626, I can't remember the number, acres would be set aside. We believe that there's sufficient leftover of 200 some plus odd acres to deal with other developments. Plus, as you go forward, Dr. Cog allocates different numbers, different amounts of urban growth. So in the future, we'll probably have more than the 200 acres as more urban area is allocated to Jefferson County in the future. So it's our opinion that the 200 acres will be sufficient as we go forward.
Okay. Bonnie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Price?
Aye.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Harris?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Ferguson.
Aye.
And Chairman Anna.
I vote aye, and that passes 7-0. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Any other comments from the commission? This commission is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.